Hey everyone, I wanted to have a better backdrop for this, but I ran out of time and here we are seeing the blinds in my office at home, but that's okay because we are here to do big things tonight. I am so excited for everything we have planned. Over the next few hours, I am going to talk to Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon from Diz Twitter, who organized this fundraiser that we are promoting tonight with the LA Regional Food Bank. He has organized plenty of different fundraisers for food banks dating back to the pandemic and then some hurricanes in Florida. Whenever people in the Disney community are suffering, he is looking for a way to raise funds and try to help them. He is definitely one of the good guys of Diz Twitter, and I'm going to be talking to him throughout the night. He lives in Southern California. He has experiences trying to evacuate from these wildfires, and it is obviously very, very important to him that we get the information out about this fundraiser. Then we're also going to have some fun. I'm going to be talking to my co-host Maz, and we are going to be doing one of our popular tier lists. This time we are going to be doing a pre-show tier list, ranking all of the pre-shows at Walt Disney World. We're going to do it for almost an hour, so you'll definitely enjoy that. We have some very strong opinions, it turns out, about pre-shows at Walt Disney World. Mouse and More Adam is going to be here. He's going to be talking about Muppet Vision 3D. Of course, we all know by now Walt Disney World getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D to make room for a Monsters, Inc. land. And then moving the Muppets over to Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster. Some very strong opinions on that one as well. And then I'm also joined by travel photographer, author, and planner Ralph Velasco. He is the Continental Drifter. We've been trying not to just focus only on theme parks on the show recently, so I have somebody, and he is really dedicated to mindful travel. We have that tendency to go, 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 go. On Disney vacations especially, we overplan. We plan every second of every day. And Ralph Velasco, he tries to focus on not doing that. Maybe have a plan, have a structure, but make sure you're giving yourself the time to really experience the places where you are traveling. Then I'm going to have Maz back on the show. We're going to talk about different ways that Universal could incorporate Wicked into the theme parks. Trust me, there's a whole bunch of fun stuff coming up over the next few hours. It is very important to me personally to raise money for this particular organization, the LA Regional Food Bank, because I lived in Los Angeles. I still have a lot of friends in the Los Angeles area. And obviously, as people know who have been following me this past year, I am also a Dodger fan. And that comes from my time living in Los Angeles. My uncle had Dodger season tickets. I'm going to talk about that with Jeff a little bit later as well. So I want to get this started. The link to the fundraiser is in the description. Please, every $1 that you donate will buy 3 meals. So you are really, really making a difference if you donate. Please, do me a favor, anything you can. If you can't donate anything, that's fine too. But if you can, please, $1 buys 3 meals. So if you donate $10, you're buying 30 meals. If you donate $20, you're buying 60 meals. So that continues to grow and will make a real difference in a real difficult time. Let's get things started. Hey everyone, the whole reason that we are here tonight is because of this man, Jeff Gordon, who organized the fundraiser for the LA Regional Food Bank. And Jeff, you have in the past organized a lot of different fundraisers like this for food banks. And I believe this goes back to the pandemic and your love of Disney. So, why don't you talk about how you got associated with this particular charity organization?
Right. Thank you, Rick, for having me, first of all, and thank you for everybody out there for sharing and donating to such a great cause. Back in 2020, as we know, the pandemic started and Disneyland was closed a very long time. And not just Disneyland, but we had the mom and pop shops, the hotels in the area, restaurants. Everybody was hurting pretty bad, and there was a lot of food insecurity. So I just did some research on food banks, and I first came in contact with Second Harvest of Orange County, which is part of the Feeding America network. And the first year in 2020, I think we raised around $26,000. We came back again in 2021. We raised 24,000, I think, that year. 2022, our focus was on um, the hurricanes in Central Florida, and we raised about 10,000 there. And then we came back and did another year, 2023, with Orange County, and raised another $10,000. And then this past year, there was another hurricane, I think it was Milton, in 2024. So we raised a little bit there. And then right now, we're working with the LA Regional Food Bank, again, a partner of the Feeding America Network. So I know they're a 501c. They're a reputable on Charity Navigator, which is where you can go and see how charities are rated. And they have the organizational structure to help out in this crisis because, I live in Santa Monica. Palisades is right above me. Altadena, where the Eaton fire was, it's the destruction has just been, uh, you can't even describe it. The pandemic was one thing, and you people were getting sick, and here with all these homes being destroyed at one time and displacing such a disproportionate amount of people and jobs going out again, it's just going to be a really long-term need for food security. I've heard from people who even lost their power for 4 days and had to throw it away. So we've been working. We're getting close to $7,000 as of this conversation, and again, over the last few years, we've raised probably about over $80,000 for food banks because the need has been high. I mean, it's a basic universal need. People need to eat, and we don't want to see kids hungry. We don't want to see families hungry. So we're just grateful for the Disney community and the larger social media community that's out there. It all, we like to say it all started with a mouse. Well, this all started with a tweet. We just put it up, and it just kind of exploded from there. And I'm just grateful for that.
A lot has been made, and every once in a while, a couple months, we get those scandals that happen because of the Diz Twitter community. And a lot has been made about the negatives, and there are negatives. I'm not going to lie about that. But one thing that has definitely really hit me over the past, I don't know, 5 years as somebody who's really ingratiated himself into this community is there are a lot of good people here too. We might not be as loud, but there are a lot of people who want to make a difference. And like you said, almost $80,000. And when you asked for this, people put fundraisers that they had currently going on hold and said, let's do this. Let's focus on this right now because it's the immediate need. How inspired have you been by the community over the past few years when you've seen that this has worked so well?
Yeah, and I think that's really the power of the positive Disney community. We may not be as loud, but we're out there, and it's encouraging, and I'm very inspired, despite all the tragedy and heartbreak that's going on around the world. And as you say, online there's a lot of hate and different spewing going back and forth. When it comes time to these fundraisers, people kind of just put that all aside. Sites that don't get along with each other, people that don't get along with each other, everybody is retweeting and reposting. And I think that's the thing. It's like we recognize this is something that's common good that we can come together and put aside our differences, even if it's just for a couple weeks or however long the fundraiser runs for, we can come together and help people that are generally need our assistance because, you just got to put yourself in their shoes. Like if this happened to you, you will want to have that same help and support, and we want to be there for them as well.
So I'm going to have a link to the fundraiser. It is in the description right now. So go down there and donate whatever you can. We're not asking for more than you have. And Jeff, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And just remember, like a dollar, $5, $10, $1 takes care of 3 meals at the food bank. So it really is every dollar to does count. You don't have to give $100. That would be great. But if you give a dollar, $5, every bit counts.
We're going to be back in a little bit with Jeff again, and we're going to talk a little more about this fundraiser. But right now, we're going to have some Disney talk. So enjoy. All right, Maz, I'm so excited that we are doing this. So, if you are watching us, if you are seeing us on Saturday night, that means this is part of our fundraiser for the LA Regional Food Bank with everything that is going on with the fires in Los Angeles. Jeff Gordon of Diz Twitter, he always likes to start these fundraisers, and I thought I would piggyback on his and we would raise some money for the people of Los Angeles. And likewise, I got all decked out in my Dodgers gear for the occasion. So, Maz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to do another one of our famous tier lists today. And this was one you had this idea, and it is a really, really good one. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun. We are going to rank on a tier list the pre shows at Walt Disney World. I think we have all of them listed, correct?
I think so.
Okay. We'll probably miss one, like when we did the tier list of Epcot rides and forgot Frozen.
Yeah, that's rough.
Hey, we don't get paid for this. So anyway,
True.
we are going to start with Disney's Animal Kingdom and work backwards by park opening. And we will start with Avatar Flight of Passage. This is an amazing queue, but I'm not going to say the pre-show starts until you are in the room where you're sort of shaking your arms around and the guy is saying, fly. And this is definitely going to be lower for me. I've gotten to the point where I actually hate this pre-show because I think it is a ride that has a long line. Like if you're riding this, even if you have a lightning lane, you're still waiting a little bit because the point where they combine the lightning lane and the standby is still a little bit of a wait to go. And then you have to wait through a long pre-show as well. The pre-show does not add anything. There's actually, I guess, two pre-shows to it. And yeah, I just think this is too much. And when I've already waited, I'm just frustrated.
Yeah, the fly is without a doubt the best part of the pre-show, and I love that line, iconic line, but it's so long and you just want to get on the ride at that point. And then, you're standing there and it without fail, I feel like without fail, that room always holds you where you have to like get matched with your avatar. There's always a hold in that room. So you do the pre-show, they match you, and then you're sitting there and they're like, wave your arms around again. And it's too much.
And I think one of the things about the, I don't know what his name is, but the fly guy, for lack of a better term, the thing that frustrates me about him is when he talks in that slow and when he talks like that and you're like, I want to get on this ride. I want to get on this.
Yeah.
Like I've been waiting for 90 minutes. I am psyched to fly over Pandora here. Like, let's get going. And it just feels like a hurry up and wait situation. And those are so frustrating. This is going to be, I think, my only F tier. I hate this pre show. I am at the point where I just despise it.
Yeah, easy, easy F for me. I don't like this one. And I think I actually like the room where they're explaining like the banshees and everything. I think I actually like that less because I feel like it's just you don't need it. I don't care. You don't need any of this. Just put me on the ride. So yeah, easy F tier for me.
Yeah, when you have Joe Rody, the Imagineer, and you have James Cameron, they all worked on this attraction. And I think they were so dedicated to the backstory that they forget that, yeah, theme park nerds like Maz and I care about that, but that's about it. Like, I guess it should have been Maz and me there. Anyway, um, we're going to move over now to a ride that is not going to exist much longer and kind of sad about it, but we are going to be losing Dinosaur. And this is Dr. Seeker. And he explains how you are going to be going back to the most inconvenient time that ever had dinosaurs to try to steal a dinosaur. And Felissa Rashad comes in and tells him that that's not going to be the case. And I think this pre show, so many iconic lines. It's funny. It explains the ride to you, actually. Like everywhere that Flight of Passage fails, this succeeds because it explains the ride to you in a way that is really, really fun and entertaining. And if you're not, quoting Dr. Seeker at least once a week, I don't know if you're a friend of mine.
Yeah, I agree. It is so much fun. And I know a lot of people um, don't love how outdated it is, but I feel like that's part of its charm. You know, it's clearly a very, very dated pre-show, but I love that about it. It just adds to the whole charm of the ride. And yeah, like you said, can you imagine getting on that ride not having seen the pre-show? You're going to have no clue what's happening. You will be so confused. And, we all know, it is no surprise to anyone who has listened before. I do not like pre-shows. I really like this pre-show because it has a purpose. So, big fan.
Yeah, I don't think when I'm riding Dinosaur, oh, can I just go through and get on the ride? I want to sit through the pre show. Now, the pre show is short, it's not as long. I mean, maybe it is as long as the Flight of Passage one, it just doesn't feel that way. And the line for Dinosaur is not as long as the line for Flight of Passage, so that helps as well. But I do think that the Dr. Seeker video, which is all I'm considering the pre-show for this, I consider all of the Bill Nye the Science Guy stuff with the dinosaur bones and talking about the different periods and the asteroid and all that stuff. I consider that to be the cue and the Dr. Seeker video to be the pre-show. So I'm going to say A tier.
Strongly agree. Definitely.
Okay, and then I scratched my head a lot thinking, are those the only two in Disney's Animal Kingdom? And they are. So we are going to move on to Disney's Hollywood Studios. And if there's one thing I know about Disney's Hollywood Studios, it likes a pre-show.
They love to give you a pre-show.
So the first one I'm going to start with here is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. This pre-show can be skipped if you do single rider line. As a matter of fact, I think you skip it even if you have a lightning lane. Am I correct?
You do. Yes, you do.
So this is only for people who are in the standby queue. The fact that you can skip it if you need to skip it is a point in its favor, I think. The fact that you don't have to sit through it like Flight of Passage and some rides that we will get to later. And this is an amazing animatronic. It's a fun story. You get to see Chewbacca. I'm going to say back to back A tier pre shows in my mind. Now, I want to hear from you, though.
We're gonna have our first argument. Um, I think that merits of the pre-show alone is how I'm counting this. And I think the fact that it can so easily be skipped while it works in my favor, and I do love that. I feel like it works against it as the concept of a pre-show because then it's like, did you really need to do it at all, or did you just want to like build an animatronic? You know, and I get it. I get a lot of people love that, but it does feel a little bit like it serves no function aside from like entertaining you while you wait. So it functions less as a pre-show and more of like an inline entertainment in my mind.
No,
So,
another ride that we're going to talk about in just a few seconds where I literally put question mark by pre-show because I didn't know if it would count as the pre-show or the queue. And I think your argument here with Smuggler's Run is less that it's a bad pre-show and more that it's almost part of the queue. Or
yeah.
you because you can skip it and it doesn't impact your ride, that it's almost a waste of a pre-show or it doesn't count as a pre-show.
Yeah, and I think it counts as a pre-show because I think Disney would count it as a pre-show for sure. I think that they would absolutely say it's a pre-show. I just think that, it's not a very good reason to have one if you don't actually need it, if it doesn't add anything to it. But it's entertaining, it's fun, you get some really cool animatronics out of it. So I would give it a B tier because I think functionality wise, it gets knocked down a bit for me. But entertainment wise, it's fine.
Okay, I'm going to agree on the B tier. And the thing I want to say is maybe the animatronic wasn't necessary, but so many times when an animatronic isn't necessary, Disney says, nope. So I do want to reward Disney for actually putting an animatronic here when there's another pre-show we're going to discuss later, the same one I was talking about earlier, where they very easily could have put an animatronic in there to make it better, and they didn't do it because they cheaped out on it. So I do want to make sure that we do acknowledge that it's cool that we got a really, really good animatronic there. Now,
Yeah.
stay in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And I think this is going to be our second big debate of the day. Because, first of all, we have to define what on Star Wars Rise of the Resistance actually counts as pre show and what is part of the ride. And two, I don't think you like a lot of the stuff that other people find to be really, really exciting. So, why don't you talk about the Star Wars Rise of the Resistance pre show and why you don't necessarily find it to be as crucial as other people?
Yeah. So I personally consider the pre-show to be everything before you sit down on that ride. So I feel like there's three separate pre-shows because you get the first room and then you get the transport and then you get the second room. And then you get on the ride and you have the ride. So for me, I feel like it's a three-part pre-show. And again, I hate that. I just want to ride the ride. But as much as I really, really don't like the pre-shows, personally. And as much as I wish there were a way for me to skip them, Rise of the Resistance does a really good job creating really cool pre-shows. And so I can't hate on it objectively because I have to look at it as, the pre-show itself is really cool. And the first time you do it, the 10th time you do it, it's still cool to see, even if I'm, standing in the back towards the door, checking my watch, going, all right, come on, come on, come on. I want to move. It's still really fun. And anytime I've ridden it with someone for the first time, their reactions to that are just unbelievably excited. So I can't, I won't knock it just because I'm impatient this time.
I love how pre-shows was your idea. You wanted to do the tier list of pre-shows and you hate pre-shows. um I am going to say a lot of glowing things about this pre-show now. And the first of them is going to be that every time I have been on this, and I've been on this ride a lot. I am a spoiled Disney adult. I believe every time I've been on this with more than 10 people in that first room, when the Ray hologram comes up, I hear people gasp. Like they are shocked by it. Then you get the BB-8, which is a really good animatronic. Then you get the quotable line, which is Poe telling you that you're a nice looking group of recruits. He said it every time I've been on there. I don't know if he says it every time, but I just know. Then, as you're moving from that room to the transport, and they have what, an X-wing?
Hmm.
They have an
Yeah.
X-wing with BB-8 on the X-wing. That's there. That's photogenic. Then you get on the ride. We have another animatronic, and you can look out the back and get a different experience than if you're looking out the front. So really, this has re-rideability as a pre-show. And then you enter that room with all of the stormtroopers, and it's the most photogenic thing, probably besides Spaceship Earth and the Tree of Life on all of Walt Disney World properties. So I think this has to be an A tier.
Yes, easily. Easily it's an A tier.
I think maybe we should even put it in an S tier because there are multiple animatronics.
Yeah, and I mean you get the extra room with General Hux too, and there's just so much to it. I feel like this is that example, like you were saying, of like they didn't have to do all this, but they did. They went all out, and you can tell. And again, it does set up the ride, so I do really appreciate that. And it's immersive in a way that I don't think most pre-shows are. Like you do really get that feeling of you're in this world now. And you get on that transport and like you're in the resistance. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'd put it in S tier.
Although the one thing I will say is everything that gets set up for you immediately disappears like 30 seconds into the ride because you're going to escape and you're not telling them the location of the base and you're going to end up going to the base and then all of a sudden you can't even get to the base and you're just trying to get back to Batu. So that's a little silly. Another point that I am going to give it though for S tier is that you also have the cast members who are playing a part in
Hmm.
this, like really living up to the name of cast members. So you don't know exactly how seriously they're going to be taking it. And sometimes I think they do an amazing job of reading the room and telling if you want them to play that role really well or if you want to just sort of be a part of a theme park experience. So, S tier, yeah, I definitely think Making it an A tier would have cut it short.
Yeah.
Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster. This is the only pre-show I am aware of at Walt Disney World or any Disney theme park where they had to digitally re-alter it because one of the people being filmed made a lewd gesture. So, what do you think about Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster in the pre-show here?
I think it's fine. I think it's fun. Um, you do get that. How about those backstage passes line? And, you know, that's very fun. Um, I think the concept of it is so silly in the sense of like that's how the ride is being set up, but it's silly in a way that I really enjoy it. Like it's one of those like this is absurd. I'm all in kind of deals. And I don't think it's too long. So I like that. It's got that going for it.
So, where would you put it?
Probably a B tier.
Okay, remember most things are average. Do we want to put
Yeah,
it here? You think B works?
I think B works for me. I think it's okay, but see, hold on.
I got a pen. So if I had a pen, you could change your mind, but it's down in pen now, Maz. So it is
All
a
right, well, I'm gonna bring up one point. It gets you out of line, and I don't love that. Like, I don't love that it gets you out of a line in a way that then you have to like redirect yourself through a narrow door. And I know a lot of pre-shows do that. I feel like Rock and Roller Coasters is more chaotic than some of the others.
yeah. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Now we're dealing with another one that I think is going to be pretty high on the list here. Um, Everything theming wise at Tower of Terror is basically perfect.
Hmm.
I don't know if we could give it S tier, but anything below A tier, especially if we have Aerosmith in the B, this has to be an A, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, easily A tier. Um, it's just, it sets the stage so well. And it's perfectly just creepy enough to get you in the vibe as you're in the hotel with all the set theming. Yeah, I genuinely enjoy this one, which most of them I don't.
And this is one that you could argue where it starts because you do have cast members once again here that are in character. So I would almost argue that you could say this pre-show starts when you enter the building. And it is just, like you said, almost perfect. So I'm going to go with an A tier. I could probably be talked into an S tier, but we're going to try to reserve that for the highest of high praise. Star Tours. Do you consider C3PO and R2D2 just part of the queue, or do you consider that a pre show?
I think Disney considers it a pre-show. Um, I don't necessarily, but I think it does like officially count as one.
So since we don't know, let's put it at a C.
I think that's fair. I think I'd put it at a C anyway.
It's nice to have the animatronics, but that was important when this was a 2 hour wait. In the early 90s, you needed this to have animatronics. Now, I don't think I am ever stopping in the room that has R2D2 and C3PO, and even the droid that I do believe is another Pee Wee Herman voice droid. Um, I don't even think, I stop very
Yeah.
often in that room. So it's almost unnecessary now. Of course, one could argue that describes Star Tours pretty well.
Yeah, kind of goes for the whole thing.
And now we're going to move on to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. This is one that if you would have asked me in 2020, 2021, I might have up at an A. But now that I've sort of settled into this ride a little bit and I've ridden it a number of times and I've had to wait in long lines for it, I think this one, like you mentioned with Aerosmith, once you're done with the pre show, then you get herded like cattle into another queue. That's another thing I don't like about this one. So while the movie's cute, there is one really amazing effect. But besides those two things, I think this is probably a C tier.
Ooh, interesting. So I had it as an A tier.
Whoa.
Yeah, because okay, so the effect I think is great. I love the song, and I guess what I'm learning from this and Aerosmith, I'm kind of a sucker for the cast member video interaction. I think that's fun and cheesy. I think that factored into Aerosmith too. But I think I could be talked into a B if
I,
we want to do a compromise.
I'm there. I'm there because I did sort of forget about the cast member interacting with Goofy, and that is fun. Um, the song, very, very catchy, almost too catchy, maybe.
One
I
could say,
don't like that even if you have a lightning lane, this ends up really cutting into your time. This is a ride that even if you do have a lightning lane, even if it's a 5 minute wait, you are going to end up spending 30 minutes riding this ride.
yeah, that's true. And yeah, what you said about being herded too out of the room, I think this is another tight squeeze, and I dislike that.
This one is going to be going away very soon, much like Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster. But I do think this counts as a pre show. I think it's a pretty legendary pre show. And I think it does deserve its moment of recognition. And that is Muppet Vision 3D. We don't have time for this nonsense. Well, what kind of nonsense would you like to see? Or whatever the line is so memorable, and I absolutely love it. Um, Rizzo dressed up like Mickey Mouse, just the whole thing. They're tourists. What do they know? It's quotable. It's fun. I think this is probably a B bordering on an A tier, but
Yep,
I think that it is going away. It definitely is showing its age a little bit, and I think that probably making it a B tier is a good spot for it.
that's exactly where I would put it as well. But yeah, it is a fun one. That's like the type of humor that I would love to see more of in Disney. Just a pre-show that entertains you. You know, it's not one that you're sitting there going, "Oh, when is it going to be over? This is annoying." You can just enjoy it and laugh a bit.
And I tell you what, I hope all of those props in that room get saved when they get rid of Muppet Vision 3D because that should be a museum. Like they should put that stuff directly in a museum once they get rid of that attraction. And now we're gonna hop on the friendship boat or the Skyliner, depending on your particular point of view, and head over to Epcot, where I think we are gonna start with a pre-show that is not gonna get good ratings. um Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is one of the best rides on Walt Disney World property right now with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad on a retheme. It is down for about a year. And I would say it might be the best ride in Walt Disney World. Maybe Expedition Everest would be the one that you would say, but
It's up there though. It's
it's up.
neck and neck.
However, this pre-show is everything I don't like about pre-shows.
Yeah, it sucks.
It tries to explain too much at the very beginning. I don't care. I don't care about wormholes, and I don't care about the going back to the Big Bang. I understand that maybe they're trying to do this for the edutainment, but the day you put Guardians of the Galaxy in the Energy Pavilion, you threw edutainment out the window and you went for entertainment. The first Glenn Close video, completely worthless.
Hmm.
Then you move into another room, and this is where you get the most frustrating part, which is the Terry Crews video. This is where he talks about not knowing what they call themselves, and people shout out day drinkers or whatever. So there's that issue. Then I am playing pretty obsessively right now this game online, and the game has you connect movies. So if somebody plays, let's say, The Princess and the Frog,
Hmm.
you could connect it to The Big Lebowski through John Goodman, right? He's in both of them.
Hmm.
Well, I've never seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I've been fairly honest that I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I like having them in the theme parks. That's a whole different story. So I'm playing this game and Terry Crews is in a movie. And I'm like, well, Terry Crews is in Guardians of the Galaxy because he's in the pre-show. How do they have Terry Crews, who's not in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, in the pre-show for a Guardians of the Galaxy ride?
They just wanted Terry Crews, I guess.
That is so frustrating. Then there is a legitimately impressive little trick that they play on you in the third room, but this is the third pre-show. And by
Hmm.
this point, you're being funneled and corralled, and people are pushing towards the doors. Then they didn't even do the service of putting a rocket animatronic in this room, which I think that's the least they could have done for us. You
Hmm.
already have a rocket animatronic for Mission Breakout at Disney's California Adventure. You could have easily put one here, but instead you cheap out. It's all videos. And then after this room, you get put in the most stress inducing tunnel, to the point where even if you just walked right into the first pre-show, if you didn't wait in line for 1 minute, you would wait about 20-25 minutes for this.
Hmm. Easily.
Lot of people, a lot of people, even in the age of boarding groups, are waiting over an hour for this ride. And then the pre-show is 25 minutes. It's ridiculous. It's a waste of time. It's a roller coaster. People don't need an intense backstory to it. I just think this is a complete waste. Unfortunately, there's nothing lower than an F tier.
Genuinely, if I could dig a hole under the tier system and bury it there, I would. But we have to settle for F tier, unfortunately. Yeah, it's horrible. We don't care about this. We don't need all this backstory. Like you said, even if they're trying to bring the edutainment angle into it, they're doing a poor job because the pre-shows have nothing to do with education, right? Like, so there's no connection there for them to, like, they're obviously trying to validate it being in Epcot. Don't. You made the choice. Stand by your choice. Don't try to explain it to me with 30 minutes of people talking to me about jump points. I don't care. No one cares. They want to get on the ride and hear a fun song and feel like they're going through space. I legitimately, I'm not even kidding. Last night I was washing dishes, and I'm thinking to myself, they could probably just cut the pre show entirely and just do a little line of dialogue in that first room on when you're on the ride. When you go in that first room when it spins you backward and like, I think we're going back. They could add like 3 lines of dialogue there. You're good. You could have the thing in the queue about like, oh, this guy stole the cosmic generator. We have to go find it. And then when you're in the ride vehicle, it's like, there he is. He has the cosmic generator. We have to go back to go get it. How far back? I think we're going all the way back. Boom. There you go. Clumsily done, but something.
Listen, clumsily done and the beginning of this ride are two things that definitely go together very well. Another frustrating thing about this is in the world of paid fast pass, of paid skip the line, this is not a bug, it is a feature. Disney
Mm,
is doing this on purpose. They are trying to slow down your day so that even if this ride in the future is only a 5 minute wait, even if you rope drop it, you can't get to your next thing right away. Like, here, let's look into the future a little bit to when this no longer has a boarding group and it is
mm.
a regular queue. You're staying on property, you get the half hour early admission. So you're in Epcot, you rope drop Guardians of the Galaxy, boom, it's 8:30. I'm in the line for Guardians of the Galaxy. We're moving through the queue, moving through the queue, moving through the queue. Boom, it's 8:35 and you get in that first room. You can't hop on a second ride before the other day guests get there because by the time you get off that ride, it will be after 9 o'clock. And the line for Spaceship Earth will be 20 minutes. And the line for, well, Mission Space never really gets a line, but everything else
Yeah.
will have already gotten a line. So I do think that the part that frustrates me the most is that this was intentional.
Yeah, and like you said, the intent to do that, okay, but then the insult to do all that and still not even give us a single rocket animatronic. Come on. It's ridiculous.
Right. With Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, the thought process wasn't let's delay how long they can get to something else.
Hmm.
Wasn't let's make them stay on a ride. It was let's have them feel this long experience. We're adding to the experience with the pre-show, but you're not adding to the experience with this pre-show. So, I mean, listen, we could go on and on about it.
We could.
The second one I want to get to in Epcot here has a similar problem, but I like so much more. Is so much more endearing, and that is Soren. This pre-show exists so that they can get everybody into their spot so that by the time the show running before you is done, then they are ready to shuffle you on to it. Sometimes that pre-show will start even while they're still getting people into place. So it's not quite as bad. However, this is another ride that, even if it's a walk on, is going to take you 15, 20 minutes until you get onto the ride. But Soren's pre show is fun. Patrick is funny. There are quotable lines. Like I said, sometimes they don't even make you be there for the whole thing. You might be, cutting through and just getting to jump right in at the very end. So while it does make it take longer for you to get onto this attraction, I do think it's still a pretty good pre show.
I think it's great. You know, he's great in it. So many great lines. Um, I also feel like, in terms of pre-show setup, this is as ideal as it gets. You get put into your spot. You're still standing in line, so there's no post pre-show crunch. You come out of the pre-show, you go right to your seat, you sit down and ride. You don't have this weird thing that, Disney keeps doing where you get out of the pre-show and then you still have another segment of line to wait in. And now you're all like jumbled because everyone's fighting to get into it. You do the pre-show, you're assigned your seat, you get out of the pre-show, sit down, enjoy the ride. Beautiful, orderly, organized, love that.
So I think I had this as a B.
I think that's fair.
All right. Here's another one where I don't know if this counts as a pre show, but I counted it. Mission Space.
I've never done it, so I can't say.
They explain the ride to you. It used to have Gary Sinise in it. Now it
Huh,
doesn't have Gary Sinise in it anymore. Um, so I think it deserves to lose some points for the sheer lack of Gary Sinise.
I think so.
Um, I'm gonna go with this being just a generic C. I do think that Mission Space is a ride that you need to have it explained to you for
Mm.
safety reasons and for show reasons. And if they're going to have to give you a pre-show, then at least they can make the pre-show feel like something. And this feels like you're training to be an astronaut. So it does what it does. It's not bad, but like I said, it's kind of borderline not a pre-show anyway. So I'm just going to go with C tier, and we are going to move on to Magic Kingdom, where I think you might have told me you've never done this attraction, but holy crap, Maz. You've never done the Enchanted Tiki Room?
I haven't. No, I know the song. I love the song. Um, it's one of those things that legitimately every time I go into Magic Kingdom for the past 2 years, I've been like, ah, this is the trip. This is the trip where I ride it. I'm gonna do it. But A, birds don't draw me in. Just to be honest, that doesn't hold much appeal. And also, like, generally, if my options are like I can go see Tiki Room or I can like go on Pirates, I'm gonna choose Pirates.
Okay. We haven't told people about some big things that are coming up in the future, but just between the two of us, and obviously it's going to go on the episode anyway, knowing the gravity of your next vacation to Walt Disney World,
I know.
you have to do the Enchanted Tiki Room. Will you promise me that?
I will promise I will try. It's on my list, funnily enough. It is on my list that I started making today about things I have to do this trip. Um, and I think honestly, I think with Big Thunder not playing a role, unfortunately, it has a much greater chance of actually happening.
So, anyway, there is a prequel to this. And I remember back when I was a kid, and you think the parks are crowded now. When I was a kid, I just remember wait times that were ridiculous. And I remember sitting through this pre show multiple times because they would cue you in that area where you watch the pre show. Now, you can basically just walk up at any time of the day. You might get your own theater sometimes. Um, it is fun. It explains what is about to happen, but sort of like Soren, this is an attraction where a pre-show isn't doing any harm because you're
Hmm.
not going to be able to get onto the attraction until the show that's running is finished. So there's always going to be that wait until the next show. So they can always start this pre show at a good time. And there's some funny jokes. I think the only things that I would say are a strike against it are sometimes it can be a little hard to hear it. And I think a lot of times, people in line just don't care about it and talk through it, and I kind of hate that. But
Yeah.
I'll say a B tier. It's animatronics, and like I said, like there's a reason to have it because you're either waiting in line with nothing or you're watching this little 5 minute show. I don't even know if I'm going to consider this one to be a pre-show either, but there is Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. They try to explain, if you've never seen the movies, they try to explain what Monsters University is. They try to explain capturing the laughs instead of capturing the screams. Um, it's fine. I get so claustrophobic in this room. This is one of the places in Disney that I really don't enjoy. Just, I don't know. It's another one of those attractions where even if it's a short wait, you get crammed in with other people and you just can't avoid it. So I'm going to give it a D, but what do you think?
I think that's good.
Perfect. Okay. Enchanted Tales with Belle. Maz is a grown up. He has never done this kid oriented attraction. I obviously am not one, so I have done it. And there is one incredible effect. I'm not going to
Hmm.
blow the effect for you if you have not done it yet, but this entire attraction, if it does not have too long of a wait, that effect in and of itself is worth a short wait. So I'm going to give this a B because it's not a hugely important pre show, but they decided to give us a cool effect. And for that, I think they deserve points.
Yeah, I always support a cool effect.
Tron Light Cycle Run. Maz, what do you A consider to be the pre show and how do you like it?
Yeah, so I was thinking, is it technically a pre-show when you get put into that room um above the track and you get that cool effect happening with the glass? Because they do like kind of sit you in there, but they also don't make you stay in there. If it's considered a pre-show, I think it's a fun effect. I'm glad we have it. I don't think it's, you know, grand or anything really special. I like how short it is. I'll give it that. But yeah, I think it would probably be like a C. I don't think it's anything too special.
Most things are average. That is one of the taglines of this show. So if you think of the show Tall Guy Talks Travel, think most things are average. No. Um C tier, perfectly fine. Again, we don't even know if we consider it a pre-show, so
Right.
can't get listed too high. And then we've gone and saved the best for last, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think this is our other S tier pre-show, and that is the Haunted Mansion. The only possible problem is if you get caught in a group of people who want to recite it.
The worst. Absolutely the worst. But can't hold that against the pre-show. That's not the pre-show's fault. That's poor etiquette.
The stretching room, it's legendary. Maz, do you know which Haunted Mansion actually has an elevator and which one does not?
Land has the elevator, right?
Land has the elevator. That is correct.
You know, I was pretty confident, and then I was like, oh boy, what if I get this wrong? That's going to be real embarrassing.
It's a trivia question now that after the pandemic, I'm not saying the pandemic's over, I'm saying after we had the pandemic precautions, a lot more people know that Walt Disney World is not an elevator because you actually would walk through it at certain points because they wanted
Ah,
separated by the 6 feet. And if you are wondering which door is going to open, do you know the door under which painting?
that I don't know.
It's the tightrope lady.
Okay, you know, that would have been my guess, but I was not confident enough in that because I really do feel like that's one where I'm not, it's a rare pre-show where I'm not tracking my exit, you know?
As much as I don't track my exit and I do like that pre show, I do sometimes get very claustrophobic. I can't
Mm.
around people in tight situations for a very long time. So sometimes I do sort of scout out a way to get out of that. So, our Walt Disney World attractions pre show tier list. We have F's for Avatar, Flight of Passage, and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Two great rides,
Excellent rides.
but bad pre shows. We have a D for Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. We have C's for Tron Light Cycle Run, Mission Space, and Star Tours. Then we have B's for Enchanted Tales with Belle, The Enchanted Tiki Room, Soren, Muppet Vision 3D, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. We have just two A's, Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and Dinosaur. And we have two S tiers. So I think we did do this one pretty well.
Yeah.
The S tiers, of course, being Star Wars Rise of the Resistance and Haunted Mansion. Maz, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel.
Thanks for having me. It was a ton of fun.
Hey everyone, I'm back with Jeff Gordon, who originated this fundraiser for the LA Regional Food Bank. The link to donate is in the description to this YouTube video, so please go down there right now and donate. Jeff, I want to ask you a little bit about your Disney fandom and how long you've been a fan and what parks you started off attending. I know you're part of West Coast Diz Twitter, so why don't you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I like to say I've been a Disney fan even before I was born. There was a time where my mom was going with my sister when she was 8 or 9 months pregnant with me, and I was hoping to be born on Main Street and maybe get that lifetime pass or whenever they were doing that, but it just didn't quite happen. But Since I was born in 1980, I've been, a big fan of Disneyland and Anaheim as the original. And growing up, my family, we were able to go back and forth between Disneyland and Disney World. But Disneyland has always been home. And as I've gotten older, I've been lucky enough and able to travel to Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea. That was like in 2009. And then more recently, I've been to Disneyland Paris and Studios Park. I think they're about to call it Disney Adventure World. Who knows what that is? But I've been there quite a few times recently, and I just really enjoy parks around the world and just seeing the differences and the similarities. It's just a great experience to do that. And I feel really lucky that I'm able to do that. But I just love Disney all around, not just the theme parks. Love the animation and film, and just the happiness and the magic behind Disney.
So now to get to something that's not as happy, we are raising these funds because of the fires in Los Angeles and the Los Angeles area. And I think one of the things that I want to stress here tonight is that right now the cameras are on what's happening. Right now we're seeing the fires and we're seeing the people evacuating and we're seeing the rubbish. What's going to happen, however, is this is going to be a long rebuild. And working class, middle class people, the people who, struggle to go to Disney maybe once a year, maybe because it's so close there at Disneyland, maybe they go a couple times a year, but they're really going to have a tough time. Rents are going to rise a lot when they rebuild. They're not going to be able to rebuild everything right away at the same time. And this is going to be a big stressor. So, things like food, if you can take one bill off of the table, if we can help reduce one bill with food insecurity, that's something that's going to help a lot of these working class families as they try to navigate a Los Angeles that is going to change forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to stress like what you're saying, it is a long-term recovery effort. And there are other organizations and charities out there with, if you can, certainly support that focus on the shelter. But LA Regional Food Bank is all about the food and just getting meals on the table while people are displaced, while they're getting back into their home, while they're trying to find employment. So that it's really easy just to walk in there and get a bag of groceries or meals, and they provide that support and assistance. And also they're able to refer out to other charities and organizations that can help with other things because it's a long-term rebuild. This is not going to happen overnight. And once the cameras do go off, we want to just still show LA that we have heart, Orange County that we have heart, Florida that we have heart, the whole United States and the world. Like, we're here to support you just as much as if something were happening in your area, we'd be there to support you too.
And the link that's in the description is for Jeff's particular fundraiser. It's going to end on Monday, but that doesn't mean if you're seeing this video coming up, even in the summer of 2025, or maybe it's 2026, I guarantee you, whatever's happening in the world in 2026, they're still dealing with the problems from these fires. And if somehow miraculously they're not, they're still dealing with food insecurity in Los Angeles. So even if our particular fundraiser is finished, you can still go to the LA Regional Food Bank and donate money. You can find many of these different food banks that are reputable, that are all over the country, that are helping people in your community, that are helping people where the next disaster is happening. So please, like, we're focusing on this right now, but it's still going to be a problem in 2 years. And there are going to be more problems that sprout up over the course of the next 2 years. So just keep an eye out and always remember that food insecurity is one of the biggest problems out there, and it's one of the easiest ones to solve.
Absolutely, Rick. And if you look to see if a food bank is associated with the Feeding America network, which so many of the Second Harvest and the LA Regional Food Bank are, You can also look up on Charity Navigator and make sure that they're reputable organizations because it is a 501c. If you donate, it is tax deductible, but you know they have that organizational structure and you know your money is going directly to the cause right away.
All right, and now we are going to talk a little bit more Disney, so enjoy that. Another episode of the podcast, and you can watch us recording it right now. But I will be back with Jeff in just a few minutes. I am so excited right now to be joined by Mouse and More Adam. Thank you for joining us, Adam.
Hi Rick, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am doing well. We are here to talk about Muppet Vision 3D, Muppets Courtyard, and really the future of the Muppets at Disney's Hollywood Studios because there were some big announcements, and I know that you have some very strong opinions on those announcements, and I definitely agree with you for the most part about them.
Oh,
So, first of all, let's talk about Muppet Vision 3D and why it is such an important attraction in Hollywood studios.
it's a good question. Well, I mean, it is not, if you're not familiar, it is not a opening day attraction, but it is close. It opened in May of 1991. The park opened in May of 89. So it's 2 years old, or 2 years young from the park. Um, so it's not an original, but it's close enough, right? Um, More importantly, it is the last thing, movie, item, show, whatever you want to call it, that Jim Henson worked on before he passed away. He passed away in May of 1990. They were still in development and filming Muppet Vision 3D when he passed, and the show had to get finished. Some things got changed a little bit after he passed, but so it is the last piece of media that he worked on. And unlike a regular movie or a television show that you can rewatch on whatever streaming service or DVD, VHS, whatever you have, Muppet Vision is a theme park attraction, so it includes other elements that you cannot get at home, right? So if you're unfamiliar, it's a spoiler alert, right? It's a 3D movie, and there are, first of all, there's a whole pre-show that has different elements and set pieces and props to look at to entertain yourself. Plus, there's a whole movie going. I'm using my hands, so you probably can't see it. There's a whole movie going on that is sort of previewing the type of show that you're going to see. And then as you get into the theater, there are practical effects. There is a real Muppet. There are robotic Muppets, and there are water effects, smells, sights, all different things. So it's things that you can't, as of now, with our current technology, you can't replicate that at home. So it is more than just a movie. It's more than just a 3D movie. It's you want to call it a 4D movie. I guess you could. It's like a fourth dimension type thing.
But
And
it's not something that you could replicate on Disney Plus. Like they can't just throw this up on Disney Plus and call it a day and say that they're giving us Muppet Vision 3D because not only would you not get the 3D effects, but the animatronic penguins, the cannons.
yes,
Yes, you get an actual Muppet, a life-size Muppet that is part of this show.
yes.
And you can't replicate that by just throwing this media onto another platform. It kind of has to be experienced as a theme park attraction.
Yes, there is, and there are YouTube videos of it. I'm not going to promote anybody, but there's one really good one that does a really good job of it. But you can only do, like you said, you can only do so much of just viewing it without experiencing the whole thing. And the part of what makes Muppet Vision so good and what makes the Muppets intellectual property, the Muppets character so good is how it's lifelike and the Muppets exist. If you ever watch a Muppet movie, they all exist in the real world as themselves. They are not looked at as puppets or as less than. They are equals with humans. So it's kind of like that cross that, or it's that way that in the Muppet movies, they are in our world. So we then are sort of like in the same world with them in this show. And that doesn't really, that you can't replicate that on YouTube or Disney Plus or whatever.
Absolutely. And like you said, this was the last project that Jim Henson worked on before he passed. I believe this is the last time he ever voiced Kermit, the last time he ever had anything to do with a lot of these characters.
Correct. Yeah.
And now that we're losing that, it's not just an opening day attraction. You know, I know a lot of people were upset about losing, for example, the Great Movie Ride. And whatever your feelings are on the Great Movie Ride, it routinely had a 5-10 minute wait. Like it wasn't drawing crowds, at least towards the end. This show, I find, I do it almost every time I'm in Hollywood studios. And when I'm there, it's half full almost all day. Like this is definitely an attraction that people still do experience. And I know a lot of us do it for nostalgia, but I do think there are families who are at Disney for the first time and they do want this intellectual property. They do want to experience the Muppets because it is one of the rare IP in the Disney umbrella where you have characters that do stack up pretty well against like the Fab Five. Like you have Kermit, who is sort of the stand-in for Mickey. You have like these are
Mhm.
legendary characters that are every bit as popular among everyday people. Actually, probably the Muppets, even on a practical level, even more than Mickey and Minnie Mouse because they've been in big movies that have happened more recently. It's an IP that I do think still stands up to this day. And because of the nostalgia that people our age have for them, combined with the fact that kids are still being introduced to them, I think this is one of those rare things that should be Disney's wheelhouse, where it is everything from grandma to grandson.
Yeah, it's definitely an 8 to 80 crowd, or 8 to 80 uh, group of characters. Um, I know you've mentioned how they had a movie more recently than a Mickey Mouse movie, which yes, and we will. And when we get to its replacement, we could bring up how Muppets have been in more uh, in front of more screens than Monsters Inc. characters have too, which is one thing, which is kind of weird to think about. But and in terms of like a marketability or a merchandising opportunity, because we all know Disney likes to merchandise, the Muppets are plush already. All you got to do is just sell them, and people will buy them, especially the cute ones, right? And 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 when you think of the name Kermit, if you tell anybody if I told you what if I told you the name Kermit, I'm sure most people will say, "Oh, that's the green frog." Like that name has become synonymous with what it is. I guess if you told anybody Mickey, what do people think about when you tell them Mickey? Are they thinking of mouse? Are they thinking of, depending on how old they are, Mickey Mantle? I don't know. But there aren't many Mickeys either. So, but there's only one Kermit.
Well, one of the things that I talk about a lot is that Disney has Coke products, and I think that's important because I feel like Coke is like the number one brand, the top brand, and Pepsi sort of comes behind whatever your personal opinions are on Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah, I get
I
it.
feel like that's the one that sort of has that Americana vibe. And the Muppets are right there. They're one of those brands. like Star Wars, like Mickey Mouse. Kermit is right up there with all of those different brands in recognition throughout society. Like Kermit is the one Muppet who was also on Sesame Street. So all the kids who grew up watching Sesame Street have a
Yes.
familiarity with Kermit, and I think pretty much everybody has some form or fashion knows Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie, the major Muppet characters, and we'll get to it right now. It's going to be replaced with a Monsters Inc. land based on those movies. And before we even get to comparing Monsters Inc. to the Muppets, I think the worst part of this decision is that we could still have Monsters Inc. without getting rid of the Muppets at Disney's Hollywood Studios, because this is a park that has a lot of dead space.
Yeah.
We talk about is Animation Courtyard, and Animation Courtyard has really nothing going on right now. They say the Little Mermaid show is coming back, and I'll believe that when I see it. And there's Star Wars Launch Bay, which has the meet and greets with Darth Vader and Chewbacca and BB-8. But I have a feeling that they would be able to find some way to incorporate them either over by Star Tours or in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in some form or fashion. And that's just dead space besides that. It is an area that, like, after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, is just a cart selling bubble wands. And that's the only thing going on there. And the fact that they didn't get rid of that area for Monsters Inc. and they decided to eliminate Muppet Vision 3D, which I do think has a lot of history, that was just a bizarre and baffling decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless if they plan on turning Animation Courtyard into, a money tree that everybody can pick from, like that's the only thing. Like I just, if you ever looked at, if you ever look at a Google map aerial of Hollywood Studios, behind Animation Courtyard is a parking garage, and there is office space back there, which is office space is used for the people that work at the park and whatever. And you need office space for the people that work at the park. I understand that, but in no other park is the office space in the middle of said park. It really doesn't make any sense. And it's really valuable space that they could be using for stuff for us to do. Instead, they decide to keep a parking garage and an office space there, and instead flip and now we're losing Muppet Vision. They are not they are not tearing down at least according to concept art. They are not tearing down the Muppet Vision building. They are converting that into something they've said a Monsters Inc. show, which is going to make for me a person who is nostalgic about things and others, it's going to be even harder to go into that area and to go into that building, because the building is going to look just like the theater looks like, and I'm assuming it's going to be some kind of screen based show, right? That's how I would. If there's, I mean, they're saving money by not using Animation Courtyard, by using this other area, by using Muppets Courtyard area for what they want to do for Monsters. So the fact that they're already saving money already tells me that they're going to want to save more money and make a screen-based show for what you're doing there, because they're going to put a lot of money into the roller coaster that they're building, I'm assuming. So it's going to be like, I don't want to. It's not a little gross, but it's going to be like the carcass is still going to be there, and we're now going into another version of whatever it is that we're seeing. And for me personally, I love Monsters Inc. I love those movies. I love Billy Crystal. I think it's hilarious. Him and John Goodman are so good together. But ever since this, I have like I like been turned off to Monsters Inc. I can't watch the movies. I know that there's a show that came out, and I refused to watch season two because of all this. And season two came out, I think, in the summer, and it's like it just completely turned off these characters for me because and it's not their fault. They didn't ask for this. Mike Wazowski didn't ask to get rid of. I'm sure Mike Wazowski loved. I mean, Billy Crystal has done things with the Muppets, so. And I wonder. I would love to tell Billy Crystal. Did you know that? Do you know where they're putting your show? Because he might not even realize it. I don't know.
It is definitely weird because from the concept art, it appears like this is going to be a facade that stays very, very close to what is there right now. Like
Yep.
they might be gutting these buildings, but the outside is going to stay very, very similar. And that is going to feel weird when it's a completely different intellectual property and they're going to try to sell us on some backstory about why everything looks the way it does, but we're all
Yeah.
going to know it's because Bob Iger didn't want to completely level the area and build from the ground up again. What is also frustrating when we talk about Animation Courtyard as a location, they're building a roller coaster based on Monsters Inc. And then they're replacing Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster with a Muppets roller coaster when it felt like, well, why couldn't you just do the Monsters Inc. roller coaster where Aerosmith is now? And if you want to add something Muppets, you could add it to where it currently would rest. Like, it really feels like they're doing a lot of extra work even to take away from the park, to take away attractions when you could just very easily build one new roller coaster and have everything make a little bit more sense. But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this new Muppets roller coaster that's going to be replacing Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster?
Well, I mean, I am happy that the Muppets will have something once Muppet Vision closes. So I am happy that's happening. Do I wish and if I had to if I had to get a ride and lose if I had to lose Muppet Vision, gain a ride, I would be like, okay. I just wish it was a ride that everybody or most people could do. And I think and we talked about this before off air. The problem with, and I hate to sound like I'm like not happy about this, but the problem with having the Muppets not in this intense roller coaster is that the ride is short. I mean, it's like a 2-minute ride, and you're not going to have much time with them anyway. I mean, Muppet Vision, the with the pre-show and the show itself, it's 15-20 minutes. Now we're going to like a 2-minute presentation here, and you're going 60 miles an hour through a dark building. So you're not gonna have much face time with Muppets. And also not everybody's gonna be able to do it. First of all, there's a height requirement. So however tall you are, that's how you will be able to get on. And not everybody likes roller coasters. Not everybody can do roller coasters. You can't do it if you have a heart condition. You can't do it if you're pregnant. You can't, if you can't step down into if you have a mobility issue and you can't step down into the car to get in and get yourself out, you can't ride it either. So there's a lot of limitations for this ride that the 3D show has none of. Anybody can go to the 3D show, unless if you don't like 3D movies, which fine, that's fine. But the amount of people that can't do 3D versus the amount of people that can't do roller coasters, you can't even compare the two. So I mean, am I glad that the Muppets are staying? Yes. Do I wish it was a slower ride that more people do? Yes. But like you said, it's just like they could have just put the Monsters Inc. there, made that whole area Monsters Inc. They could have done what they're doing now and kept Muppets where they were and then kept Monsters where they were. So it's kind of like they added an extra step for Reasons I don't know why.
And I often try to think, what is the thought process for Disney, right? Like, they're looking at data that we don't have, and they're looking at information that we don't know. Is their data telling them that Muppets are exclusively a nostalgia property now? Are they under the impression that it's basically, people like Adam, people like me who remember the Muppets from their childhood who are into them? Because I don't think that's the case. Every time I'm in Muppet Vision 3D, there's a ton of kids there. When they used to do the American History show in Liberty Square at Magic Kingdom, it was always the kids that would go crazy for that show. So
Yeah.
I don't think Muppets is just a nostalgia property for adults. And because of that, I don't like limiting it to a roller coaster that is going to deter a lot of older people. When you say 8 to 80, like, that 70-year-old age, like, they stop going
Yeah.
on roller coasters after a little bit, and until you hit that height requirement. And even if you do hit the height requirement, there are a lot of kids who aren't ready for a roller coaster right when they hit that level. It takes a while for them to do the progression. If you've done Barnstormer and then you do Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, like, you work your way up to Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster. That's not baby's first roller coaster, right? It is.
Yeah. No, I don't. It goes upside down. If you didn't know that, if you're
Right.
listening, you know that it goes upside down. It goes upside down like I think three times, and there's a launch that launches you at like 60 miles an hour, which doesn't mean anything if you're going fast either way. So if you're not used to that, then you get used to it because you're gonna have to if you want to ride it.
It's definitely thrill wise above Big Thunder, above Barnstormer, certainly above Seven Dwarfs. Like, this is that next level of roller coaster up there with Everest and Space Mountain. I would say it's probably even a level above Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Um,
Yeah, I think because it goes upside down, absolutely.
yeah. So I think there are a lot of reasons why I don't like this being the Muppets representation. Now, it might be fun to incorporate some different songs, to incorporate some different musical artists besides just Aerosmith, which, when you combine maybe some of the problematic things we've learned over the past couple years, and then when you just start to think that Aerosmith hasn't had a hit in quite a few years as well, maybe not relying so much on a band that peaked in the 70s and had some resurgence in the 90s
Yeah.
is a good idea. But I just don't know with attaching it to the Muppets, who, are supposed to be for everyone. However, they are getting ready for this villain show that is going to be replacing the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy, which is in that back corner, sort of tucked behind what is now Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster, and right by the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I wonder, do you think it's possible, once Monsters Inc. is doing its thing, and once we've had the Muppets showing people that they are an IP that still deserves to be in the parks with this roller coaster, do you think it's possible that Muppet Vision 3D could come back and replace that villain show, which I believe is just a precursor for Villains Land over at Magic Kingdom? Do you think we might get Muppet Vision 3D back in that corner?
I hope we do. I hope we do. Um, logically, it makes sense. I mean, they're going to have this villain show, and you would think once when they open this villain's land they're building in Magic Kingdom in 5, 6 years, assuming everything goes well with the economy and everything. Um, I would think they're going to not have the villains there and leave them there. You would think. However, Disney does have no problem of having the same property in multiple parks. You got Beauty and the Beast show in Magic Kingdom or in Epcot. No, sorry, Beauty and the Beast show in Hollywood Studios. You have their video thing in Epcot, which is kind of weird. I don't, it's such a weird thing that they do there. And then you have the restaurant in Magic Kingdom. You got Beauty and the Beast in three different places. You've got Frozen in Epcot, the ride, and then you've got Frozen show in Hollywood Studios. So they have no problem. And then you have Star Wars in three places in one park. So they have no problem duplicating properties in different areas. So would I think that villains would leave? Yes. Will they? I don't know. Um, with the Muppet Vision is the show, but it's also all the other stuff. And I just hope and pray that there is somebody in Imagineering that is going to be there for a while who is taking notes and making sure, okay, this is here, this is here, this is here. Because when we go and replicate it in another theater, everything goes back to where it's supposed to be. And the fact that there's just so many extra elements and things, I don't know if they're gonna. I hope they're taking the time to really make sure everything gets stored correctly, or that they're gonna spend the money and make new robots and such. I really do, but I don't. I just have to hope because like there's like certain things that just they do that just don't make any sense, and this whole Muppets monsters thing didn't make any sense to me, and yet they're still doing it. So I don't know. I mean, it's a perfect spot. If they're not going to have Muppet Vision where it is now, it's a good spot for it because it's going to be next to the ride that they'll have. It is a courtyard. They could put a fountain there. They could put a merchandise thing there. They could put a rest. They could put so much things there. There's space there, and it's kind of in its own little corner. Nobody's going to touch it. It's not near Galaxy's Edge, so it's not like that's going to swallow it up at some point. They're not going to do another tower. They're not going to do a Twilight Zone something next to Tower Terror. They'll never do that. You know, they could, they should. They'll never do that. It's a good spot for it. Um, I'm hopeful that that will happen, especially given what they said in their press release. How they, I don't know how the words correctly, but they said something to the effect of we're taking steps to preserve it and whatever. And what Jim Henson Company said, how they're looking forward to Muppet Vision's next, I think next step or next ride. They said something to the effect. It seemed like implied that they knew that something is going to happen to Muppet Vision at some point in the future.
I think the time that I got scared about the future of Muppet Vision, because I was always pretty confident, except for there's always like that one thing that's sort of like itching your brain, like this doesn't feel right. And when they reopened from the pandemic and they never reopened the Muppets store
Yeah,
in Muppets Courtyard, that was the thing that kind of said to me, if Disney doesn't want to make money off this property right now, it's in trouble. And when you combine never reopening the store and the fact that I feel Mama Melrose, which is a sit down restaurant that's in the Muppets section, but is really tucked back in a corner that if you didn't know it was there, if you weren't looking for Mama Melrose, like you wouldn't even know it was there.
yeah.
So that restaurant was half full a lot.
Hmm.
And Disney does not like to waste space on restaurants that aren't at full capacity. So that was another thing that kind of scared me. But that was more the location of the restaurant, where they built the entrance. Like, I didn't feel that was anything to do with the food. The food there was fine.
Yeah.
The theming was fine. It's just they sort of tucked it back. Really, as you were exiting Muppet Vision 3D was the only time that you would see that restaurant, or if you were visiting the store. And since they never reopened the store, I think that hurt the demand for the restaurant. So I think those things, combined with the suspect pizza at Pizza Rizzo,
Hmm.
um, Disney felt, well, we can put a new facade on this, maybe change up the restaurants a little bit, and then there will be demand. Now, maybe it will work, but I would advise them on Woody's Barbecue, or whatever it's called in Toy Story Land, because when that first opened, it was one of the hardest reservations to get on property. But about 2 months later, I bet you could go on right now, open your My Disney Experience app, and make a reservation for tomorrow every 15 minutes. So a lot of these things, they think, oh, we'll plaster a popular IP on it, and it will all of a sudden become the new incarnation of Be Our Guest. But that doesn't always happen. And I'm worried that they're going to make these changes, the Monsters Inc. changes, and maybe they don't have the big splash that they intended. And then any chance of them spending that money windfall on Muppet Vision 3D coming back at another end of the park becomes less and less likely.
And and them doing something with Animation Courtyard, because if 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 they are saving Animation Courtyard for something big, there is no guarantee that will ever happen. Because I mean, like, things change, economic things change, popularity of something changes. So they might have a grand plan for, these are not, these are just me spitballing here. They might have a grand plan for Zootopia, because there's a Zootopia 2 movie coming out. So they might have an idea for a Zootopia land there. They might have an idea for a Simpsons land there, which is another 54, at that point will be a 40-year-old property, right? They might have grand plans for, I mean, that's sort of next to Toy Story Land. So they might have grand plans for, like, expanding Toy Story Land out that direction. Like, and there's another Toy Story movie coming out, but if that doesn't hit well, who knows, right? It's all about like what movie does well, and which is why, like, this Monsters Inc. thing is so interesting, because the sequel came out, and I think 2011, it wasn't a sequel, it was a prequel, 2011, 2012, something like that. And then they have this show on Disney Plus, which I don't think is popular. It's good, but although like I said before, I haven't seen a second season. But I don't think it's like moving any needles or anything. It's not a Moana or Encanto. Um, who knows? Maybe they're going to build Encanto Land over there, although they're doing that in Animal Kingdom. My point is, they're saving that area for something, and they might not do anything with it. I have some hope that Muppet Vision will return in some form at Hollywood Studios, but unfortunately, there's a lot of factors that are beyond my control and anybody's control. And I'm assuming whoever even wrote that blog post won't be there in the next 3 years or 5 years, when they might be able to put it back, and it's out of their control too. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm glad that and you are too, that we lived in an era where we were able to experience it, in its true form. So I'm thankful for that, at least.
And just quickly before we go, why do you think, as somebody who is such a big Muppets fan, why do you think this is an important intellectual property to continue on to the next generation? What do you think are the benefits of having the Muppets in a theme park, in an attraction that is accessible to the widest amount of people?
That's a good question, and I think it comes back to just the type of characters that they are, and how they are relatable to people, and yet they don't look like us. So they're not a there's no you can't put them in a category as a person, okay? You have they don't they look weird, and that's okay. And if you're a young kid, and maybe you're having trouble making friends or something, um you can find a Muppet character. I mean, it happens with Sesame Street, and Sesame Street are Muppets, right? You can find a character that you can relate to that is your personality type. Maybe you're more of a crazy person like Gonzo. Maybe you're more of a prima donna like Miss Piggy. Maybe you're more of a free, sort of flowy thinker like Janice from the band Electric Mayhem. Um, Maybe you're like the straight laced guy like Kermit. You know, you can find any character to sort of relate to, and and it's just they don't judge. Muppets, they don't judge each other whenever you're watching them in a show or on a movie. They're funny with each other and make fun of each other, but they don't criticize each other. They don't judge each other. Except, of course, obviously the two guys, Statler Waldorf, but that's part of their stick. I mean, that's they're the cranky old men. They're allowed to do that. But um, I just think it's a really inclusive base of characters that anybody can find somebody to latch onto and enjoy with.
I think one of the things that I like about the Muppets being in a Disney park is you have a character like Mickey Mouse who started off in Steamboat Willie and he was mischievous and everything and he caused problems. But over the 90 years, his persona turned into this different thing. It was slick. It was, polished. It was, it all started with a mouse. It was a character that became the face of this huge corporation and
Yeah.
kind of lost that mischievous edge. He became perfect. He became the big cheese.
Yes.
The Muppets will never be perfect. The Muppets
Yeah.
are
That's
always
true.
making mistakes. Their best laid plans are never going to come into fruition. And that's something that's important for kids to learn. Not everything is going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to try to put on the show and everything is going to go wrong and you just laugh with your friends about it because what are you going to do at the end of the day, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I think it really does fit as a nice counter to that perfect Mickey Mouse image that has been created throughout the years. So that's why I like the Muppets being there. Adam, this was such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Rick. Appreciate it.
Do me a favor and get ready to type this web address into your phone. It is a long one, but I will read it twice. To donate to the LA Regional Food Bank, go to give.lafoodbank.org/6001687. That's give.lafoodbank.org/6001687. We want to thank Jeff Gordon of Diz Twitter for starting this fundraiser and extending it until Monday so we could do this special event on Saturday night to raise money. That link is specifically to donate under the account of Theme Park Fans for Good, but if you don't see this until after January 21st, you can still donate at lafoodbank.org. This past Thursday on Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty, my co-host Maz talked about her experience flying solo on a Friday night at the Orlando Informer meetup last month at Universal Orlando Resort. Well, this upcoming Thursday, you can hear the two of us talk about going to that event together on Saturday night. Here's a quick sample of our conversation. We picked things up a few minutes before midnight, getting pizza tots at Seuss Landing in Universal's Islands of Adventure.
Yeah, so I was a little hesitant because I feel like we hear so much about how good the pizza tots are, and knowing what we know about how these stands are operating during the meetups where they're kind of just trying to get as much out as they possibly can because, like you said, people are coming up to get something, to have a couple bites of it, to move on to the very next thing. But I was very impressed. They lived up to the hype. They were warm and comforting and delicious, and it was chilly out, so the warmth of the pizza tots was very welcome at that point in the evening. I was really happy with them, and gotta say, few better feelings than looking up at the menu board and seeing that it's this like $12 item and you're walking away from there without even paying for it. Oh, that feels great.
Yeah, it was kind of tempting for me when I had to order it and they had to make it special for me because I had the vegan one and they didn't have them ready. I almost wanted to go, well, how about 3 of them? That's $36 worth of vegan pizza tots. But they were very, very good. And yes, you are spoiled because during the day they are $12.49, I think it was, but definitely worth it. And I now know why they have the hype. And kudos to Orlando Informer for making sure that even if they're not already made, that they do have the option to get the vegan version at the Orlando Informer event. Just really, really top shelf. Then we rode the Seuss train, which at this point in the night was one of the coolest experiences I've had at Universal, because that Seuss train, there are some times when you feel like you're almost just in the air because of how slim the track is compared to the vehicle you're riding. And getting all those views, seeing the lights, seeing the projections on Hogwarts Castle, and then hearing the little kitschy little Dr. Seuss voiceover. The whole thing was just really cool. And I don't care that I was a 44-year-old man riding the Seuss train. It was something I wanted to make sure I experienced, and I got to experience it. So that was really great.
Yeah, I'm so glad we did that because, like you said, being on that little tiny rail and you're on this little vehicle, listening to it, I don't know, it was a weird form of nostalgia that like wasn't actually nostalgia, but I knew in the moment that I was going to be nostalgic for that moment. And like I've thought back about that and been like, man, that was just such a cool thing.
I mean, the Seuss train is Islands of Adventure's people mover, right? It gets you those great views of the park. But when you talk about the nostalgia, it has that nostalgia of Dr. Seuss, even though I believe Islands of Adventure opened in 1998.
1999, I think.
So I was 18 or 19 years old when this theme park opened. But you have the nostalgia from Dr. Seuss that translates into a land that was created way after you had any interest in Dr. Seuss. And it gives you a nostalgia that it almost doesn't earn. Like, it almost steals nostalgia for you. And then we headed over to Universal Studios Florida. We just hit islands so hard that we now only had like an hour left. I wanted to do E.T. because that's like my comfort ride at Universal. So we went over. We got to see that new DreamWorks land, even though we weren't able to ride anything. They had that cut off by that point in the night. But we got to take some pictures. And then we rode E.T. with one of the loudest families in the world, but that's beyond the point. And then, like, we were almost up against the clock at this point. That's how much you can do you're getting lost in all of these different experiences. And then the next thing you know, what do we have to do before the end of the night? So I rushed back to see if Finnegan still had food available. They did not anymore. You headed right towards Diagon Alley. And when I met back up with you in Diagon Alley, were there 5 people there?
Tops. Like, probably including us. It was wild.
I couldn't believe how few people were there. And we just walked up, we got more butterbeer, and they were just ready to hand it to us. We were coming up on 1:30, but they were still giving out the butterbeer. I had stopped at a cart on the way there and got like a little donut thing that was probably a waste of calories, but it was fine, but I could have allocated those calories better. Anyway, we got the butter beers, and then we just waited and thought, are they going to do one last fire-breathing dragon at 1:30? And when you talk about instant nostalgia, when you talk about a moment that you're like, I'm going to remember this moment in 5, 10, 15 years, at 1:30 in the morning, when there were 3 other people in this theme park land that normally is elbow to elbow, and that dragon breathed fire, man, that was the pinnacle.
That, like, first of all, couldn't have ended on a higher note. But, like, again, that's like something you dream about when you walk through this land as a day guest and it's so crowded and everyone's pushing up against each other and you're like, man, I wish I could be here when it was just me. And, like, that's what this was. We sat and enjoyed our butter beers and there was nobody there. And then to walk over there and there's a couple other people and you get this like totally unobstructed view to see this happen at 1:30 in the morning. No one's there. It's decorated for the holidays. Like, it's the trifecta. You can't get better.
Hear our entire conversation about the Orlando Informer meetup at Universal Orlando Resort on Thursday during a brand new episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We are here tonight to raise money for the LA Regional Food Bank. We have all seen the devastation that is happening in Los Angeles. The ramifications of these wildfires will last for years and possibly decades. We know that when they rebuild, it will be hard for working class and middle class families to afford rising rents and property costs. Jeff Gordon of Diz Twitter created this fundraiser under the moniker of Theme Park Fans. I am so excited to be joined right now by the Continental Drifter, Ralph Velasco. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, first and foremost, I want to talk about what you do as a business, because you have taken your love of travel. I started off as a travel agent. I don't do that anymore, but that's how I got into this podcast. And you have similarly taken your love of travel and turned it into a business. And I love when people can follow their passions like that. So why don't you talk about that for just a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, back in 2008, about 16 years ago now, I went full-time organizing and leading small group cultural tours around the world. I started out with a photography focus on the trips, so they were more like photo workshops and photo tours. So, but over time, I realized that was really unsustainable for me to do like 10 or 12 trips a year that were photo workshops, because a photo workshop turns out it's like every sunrise, sunsets, image reviews, 24/7 photography just about. So that was not going to cut it for me long term. So I started to back off the photography a little bit. And now they're more cultural tours with a focus on photography. Of course, we're all some sort of a photographer. But I also say that who doesn't want to be out in beautiful lights before the crowds of the day and the heat of the day? and just looking at beautiful things in really nice light, whether or not you've got a camera. For the past 16 years, I've organized and led over 120 international trips around the world, over 100 here in the US with over 1,200 clients. So it's been a nice run.
Yeah, obviously, everybody now either they are a photographer, which is a great niche and is a focus that I don't think a lot of people think about how to get amazing pictures when you're doing these things. But also, even if you're not a photographer, even if that's not a hobby of yours, when you're traveling, you want to have those memories. And I think a lot of times those memories come in the form of the photos that you take. And like, I think a lot of us can remember that when we used to travel when we were kids and the technology wasn't as great, and you would go on vacation and you wouldn't find out for like 2 weeks what you got, right? And
Oh
now
yeah.
we live in a world where we can make sure that we're getting those shots, we're capturing those memories a little bit better. I know that you even have some travel photography books, and you've had a focus on travel photography. What got you into that? When did you start with that passion?
Well, I've been a traveler since I was 15, and I was a volunteer in Peru for a summer. The next summer, I volunteered in Venezuela. Or actually, the previous, I was in Spain for a summer in high school. Then I went to Mexico City and I studied there for Spanish. So from a very young age, I've always been very into international long-term travel. But I've also always enjoyed photography. But back then, and I'm probably older than you and some of your listeners, but that was definitely before the technology and before digital photography, the internet, cell phones, the wheel. But so I started to get some nice compliments about my photography, and that maybe it was a little bit better than, normal. And this was way back when. So when digital photography sort of came to be, which I'll say early 2000s or so, I recognized an opportunity to perhaps create some photo walking tours where I could teach people to use these new digital devices that they had no clue about. So that's how that was the seed of this whole thing.
So, what do you find makes a great travel picture? What do you find is it, it can't just be the Eiffel Tower, it can't just be the landmarks. When you're really traveling and you're doing it in the best way, you're seeing things that you don't see on the bus tours and you don't see on the walking tours. And you put together very special trips so that you can find those perfect pictures. What do you think actually captures the essence of a place more than just, like I said, the landmarks that are there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And of course, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and one person's centered landmark shot, that someone loves is someone else's garbage. But I think that it's kind of like pornography. You'll know it when you see it. It's so when the first thing I say, because I do a lot of image reviews and contest judging and things like that. So the first thing I say is that it's about impact. So as soon as that picture pops up on the screen or you look at it, does it hit you? There's something about it pop out and say, wow, this is great. You may not even know why, but something about it. And it's a lot of different things. It's the lighting, time of day, the subject matter. Is the shot too busy or is it simple? More simple. I really like simple shots with just like maybe one or two subjects. And um, uh, there's difference between portraits and environmental portraits. I love portraits of people around the world, but I love those environmental portraits where just maybe you're a little bit wider and you've got that person in the shot, but then you've got something in the foreground or background that's telling the story where that picture was photographed, who that person might be, something about them, as opposed to just a picture of a face, which can be great too. But it's something that I know when I see it. I like nice saturation. I love black and white. So a lot of different parts of a photograph, that's for sure.
And what do you find in this age of social media when you are helping people to get pictures? Is it just that they're looking to get those shots for their Instagram to make the people back home jealous? Or are they looking to maybe take it to the next level and start finding that shot that is maybe, gonna be submitted for a contest or might get hung in a wall in a gallery somewhere? Do you find that people are gravitating one way or the other?
I think it has a lot to do with age group. So my clients tend to be 40s plus age group. So they're not really the Instagram selfie kind of people. Um, I guess nothing wrong with that, but the lower, smaller, the younger age groups are more prone to that, I think. And so my people, the people that come on my trips who tend to have some sort of an interest in photography, or they'll bring along a friend or a spouse who doesn't necessarily, but again, who doesn't want to be in great places at the great time of day, but they're looking for, that once in a lifetime shot that they can enter into their local camera clubs contest or something. So definitely, I think a little bit higher, a higher aspiration than some people.
So, in your YouTube channel, I've noticed a common thread, and that is mindful travel. And I would like you to expand on that concept a little bit because I think I know where you're going with this. And I do think it's something that gets lost a lot when we overplan.
Yeah. And so, as someone who is a professional photographer, I think that I wrote the books because I needed them. Uh, as a photographer and people that come with trips, and everyone can relate, I'm sure. I tend to go on a trip and I end up coming home and I realize that I saw the place through the viewfinder of a camera. And yeah, I got some great shots. I got the passport stamps and some receipts that prove that I was there. But was I there mentally? What kind of real experience did I have there? And if it's just about getting those memories for later, there's a balance. There's always a balance. And so I'm really big, as I get older, I've traveled more, I am more about slow travel and really taking in the place. And so for my trips, I'm sort of moving them towards more, let's stay in one, maybe two locations over the course of a trip, as opposed to five or six, throughout a whole country or region. And instead, we travel deep, not wide. So we're not trying to touch a little bit of a lot of things. We're trying to do a deep dive into a few really important things. And so that allows us to slow down. I think that coming on a trip like mine, where everything's laid out for you, planned to a point, I schedule about a half day scheduled, half day free time, so people can go out on their own, do their own thing, not do anything, be mindful, or they can go out and do things that interest them that maybe aren't on the trip. But what I came to realize is that, boy, that takes a lot of the onus off the participant, the person on the tour, to not have to think about so many things, that when you're traveling on your own, all those decisions are yours. And so that takes away from the experience. And so I like to think that this kind of travel gives you more time to be mindful. But my recommendation is that people set a timer for themselves for every hour or two. You're walking around some city, could be even in your own home or your own city, and um, set a reminder to just stop, look, listen, feel, touch, taste your surroundings, and intentionally take it in because we're this culture of multitasking. At least I know I am. I'm eating lunch, I'm watching TV, I'm on my phone, I'm listening to a podcast, and I'm not doing anything well. So it's more about focusing on one of those tasks at a time and really being able to absorb it and do it right.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think a lot of times we want to make sure that we, hit the things, we see the things that we want. Because let's be honest, like when you're traveling, it costs money. And if you're going to go to a place where you've never been, you have to sort of think, well, it's possible that I might not get to come back here. So I do want to make sure that I see everything there is to see, but then you can get into this checklist travel where you are just going to see this thing and then you take a picture of it and maybe you take a beautiful picture of it. But then you go to the next thing and you take another beautiful picture, but at the end you didn't talk to anybody and you didn't learn more about that city.
Exactly. Yep.
I know that you focus on photography. A lot of times, what I like to do is hike, and I did a walk across Ireland a few years ago. And what I found was that put me in situations where I had to interact with people because I had to ask where's the closest bed and breakfast when I was tired. I had to find the restaurants because I didn't have everything laid out for myself. You can't plan those things. You can't plan when you're going to be hungry on a hike. So you walk into a town and all of a sudden you're forcing yourself to interact with the people. And I think that's part of what you're talking about there with the mindful travel is to make sure that when you leave, you don't just have photos, you don't just have images, but you have a sense of what the place was like and what the people there experience.
Absolutely. And on my trips, I make a big part of our trips meeting the local people, maybe getting inside their homes, having lunch or a cup of tea, getting inside their places of business, learning how they work, asking questions, typically through our interpreters, because often we're going to places that I don't speak the language. And but people are a place, no doubt about it. That's the number one thing on my list for what I want to do and who I want, the things I want to do when I get there is to meet the local people. And all the other stuff is kind of secondary. And I think, it's impossible to see everything. We know that, but I think if you set your expectations too high and you say, well, I'm never going to be back here. Yeah, you might get to see all those things, but it wasn't at the expense of the actual experience. So again, everything is a trade-off. Everything's a balance. So it's balancing those things and knowing what's right for you.
And when you are organizing tours like this, are you stressing this with the people who are on your tours? Are you trying to make sure that you're saying, "Hey, like, this is great and that picture's wonderful, awesome. You captured it. Now, hey, there's some people over there. Let's have a conversation or, make sure that you're enjoying this because I would imagine having somebody there to help keep you in the moment, especially in the hustle and bustle that we have in society right now. Just having that person to tap you on the shoulder and say, make sure you're enjoying this, would be a help to a lot of people who maybe are going on one of your tours for the first time, for example.
No doubt about it. That's where that timer comes in. If you're by yourself, it's that person like me, maybe reminding someone. That timer will remind you to do that. But yeah, I try to do that. For a long time, though, I'll be honest, I wasn't doing that. And that's what made me start to think about the importance of a book like this and slowing down and getting more out of the places that we're going to. Because I think that the more mindful you are, the more you're actually getting out of the money that you spent to be in that place. So it's a good investment and you're not burning yourself out. As we get older, we slow down a little bit. We're not quite as active or wanting to do as much as we did in our 20s. So I try to provide that balance and also just that those scheduled appointments that we have often with a local violin maker or a flamenco guitar maker in Madrid or whoever else, a guy who makes homemade vodka in Romania. That those are the places that I want to go meet the people and have my people start talking to them. And our guides are really important for that too, because no one speaks Romanian that I know. So asking about the traditions and the culture and the different customs, I'm always fascinated by. And I'm so huge on learning from other cultures and not thinking that mine is the right one or the only one. And I think that's a huge mistake.
The other day I was at work and somebody was talking about movies, and I said that I'm more of a person who likes to, watch the same movies over and over again. Like I have my comfort movies, and every once in a while I might, sit down and discover a new comfort movie, but it takes a lot. So when you're planning these trips and you're looking at different destinations, do you find yourself wanting to return to a lot of the same destinations multiple times because you found that comfort place that you really love to visit, and maybe you're familiar with the guides and you're very familiar with the culture and you know when to get those great shots? Or are you also trying to test yourself and make sure that you're branching out and seeing new things as you continue to prepare these trips? Or is it sort of a combination of both?
Absolutely, a combination. It's both because I certainly love to go back to the places that I know and that I'm more comfortable in, that I have friends or contacts in. I've been to Cuba 19 times now, and every time I go back, I see all my old friends. So it's wonderful. But I also want to expand my horizons. I want to see other places and experiment and get new perspectives on things. So it's a little of both.
And what type of perspectives do you find that you do get when you leave? And I know that's sort of a simple question, but I know that a lot of people I know have never left the United States. And that gives you one sort of perspective. But when you see the world in a broader scale and you start to interact with people in different cultures, I think of the old Sting song that, Russians love their children too. Like when you start to know that the people in these countries are very much like us and very different from us at the same time, do you find that you end up bridging gaps, that people start to realize that the world is a lot smaller than they think?
For sure. It's one of the best things about travel is meeting those other people, finding out what their perspectives are on life, why they do things the way that they do. And on my trips, I will go someplace and it might be a less developed country and there's problems that, at least that we feel are problems. Maybe it's, I don't know, dirty or poverty or something like that. And I try to encourage my people. I say, let's not go to this place and try to solve their problem because it's not going to happen. We are not going to solve poverty in that country, but let's try to learn from that. Let's not go in there and try to impart our perspective on the people. I think that's as people from the United States, we have a bit of a reputation for thinking that we are it, period. Everything we do is right. It's the way to do it. Isn't everyone doing it the way we do it? And I'm a very proud American, but um, we don't do everything right. And there are other ways of doing things. And not everyone wants to be in America as much as we think they do. Not everyone is jealous of us. So that's something that you really realize. And it's great to be nationalistic and to be proud of your country and number one. But, it's kind of like your football team or something. We got to respect everyone else's teams as well.
No, I think a lot of times if you remember to put a question mark at the end, to ask the people that you're meeting about their lives, because I do think a lot of times Americans are, told that we're going to go somewhere and they're like, "Oh, this is how it's going to be." And it is never the way that you expect it. No city I have ever visited, whether it be in the US or outside of the US, was ever exactly what I thought it was going to be. And the people's lives are much different than you think. And I thought it was a good point that you made going to some of these poorer countries. And when you see people who are living in conditions that we think are horrible, but they're living their lives and they're surviving and they're thriving and they're loving their kids and they're taking care of their elderly, and they are living a life not thinking, boy, I wish I was in New York City with a big screen TV watching Netflix. That's not part of their life. And they're not just sitting there like, oh, woe is me. They're living their lives, they're having fun, they're doing all the things we're doing, they're just doing it in a different environment.
Yeah. And their cost of living, and I don't mean necessarily the price of living, but just their, it's a simpler life. And so it's all about trade-offs. I mean, I keep saying that, but we have this life where, yeah, we may have, be more wealthy than some people, but we work 24/7 to achieve that. And, there's a lot to pay for that. Where, I go some places and the people may have, little huts with dirt floors and they are happy as can be. This talk about a simple life and, few problems. I mean, obviously we all need shelter and food and, that kind of thing and love. But if you've got those basic needs met, you're a lot of the way there, and the rest of it is kind of chaos.
Now, how do you sort of avoid having this be I mean, I don't want to say cultural tourism because it sort of is a little bit of cultural tourism, but
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you're seeing what is actually happening in these areas, and B, how do you guarantee, and I know this is probably, a hard balancing act, making sure that you're not exploiting some of these poor people and just, telling their stories without their permission or from a different point of view? How do you make sure you're getting the real story so that um your perspective or the perspective of the person traveling with you, that they're trying to make sure they are ingratiating themselves and telling the right story?
Well, a lot of it comes down to our local guides, the local tour operators. So I count on them a lot for giving me the cultural information, what's traditions and customs and things like that. Uh, are we going to offend people if we tip them for something? Is tipping, what is the tipping culture here?
Just hearing you say that, like, I never would have thought, am I going to offend these people by tipping them? But that is
Oh,
something
yeah.
that obviously you've run into.
Absolutely. Yeah. In Cuba, if you go to take a picture of someone, they're gonna do this, and it means I want a kook. At the time, they don't have the CUC anymore, but it was called a kook, and so they wanted to be paid. And some people would do that. The people that are, the cigar ladies and the people that are street performers and things like that. So I always set up my people for what to expect when it comes to tipping. But if you go to a place like, say, Cambodia, the people would be offended if you tip them. So it's a very cultural thing, is what I always say.
Amazing. So, just before we wrap this up, I would like to talk about some of your favorite places that you have visited, some of them that are those comfort places that you return to a lot, or some of those places where you've been once and either you just really want to get back there, or that memory is going to stick with you even if you never do get back to that location.
Right. Well, some of the places that I love to go back to over and over again are Spain. So that was that first trip to Europe that I took when I was 15, and I studied there in high school, and I was just hooked on Europe and Spain specifically. So I love to go back to Spain. I speak Spanish, so I'm able to communicate a lot better than in most other countries. Um, the Republic of Georgia is a beautiful sort of off the beaten path location that's getting more notice these days, but astoundingly beautiful place, very modern, but still has a really nice history. I think the Tbilisi, the capital, is from the year 500, and the food is off the charts. It's very inexpensive by most standards. So the Republic of Georgia is another wonderful country. Cambodia is another favorite of mine. Places that I've been to, say, once, most recently would be Antarctica. I just was there last year and I was blown away. And I was just amazed at the silence, the sound of silence. I mean, you talk about that song, and I mean, that really represents the sound of silence. And but also there's, no man-made object anywhere except for the ship that you're on. When you get down there, there's no cell towers, fences, airplane contrails, or anything like that. All you hear is maybe the ship and the people that you're with, and then the sound of the wild. So it might be seals or whales, the glaciers calving, whatever. But so Antarctica was a real stunner. And I figured out that something like 0.005% of the population has ever been to Antarctica, the world's population. So pretty exclusive place.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you when you mentioned Antarctica, as like I'm never going to go there. Like I know that. I just know I'm never going to step foot in Antarctica, but you have been there, and with your specific focus on photography, do you almost feel a sense of duty when you're down there knowing that 0.005% of people will ever get to see this? Do you feel a responsibility to capture that with your camera and to let other people know who will never get to experience it what it was like in some form or fashion?
I really do. I love to share my images and my YouTube channel and the videos that I put up there. So, I mean, that's why we all take pictures. Yeah, we want them for our own memories, but we also want to share them with our friends and family and show them where we've been. And this kind of a place, I like to inspire people to go down there. It's not that difficult to get down there. You don't have to sail the Drake Passage for 2.5 days. We fly down. We fly from Punta Arenas, Chile in an hour and 45 minutes. You're on the continent, and half hour later, you're on the ship. So it's really, really nice. And that was really the only way I was going to go. I'm a sailor. I sail, race sailboats and stuff, but I had no desire to do that 2.5 days each way on the Drake Passage. That's notoriously rough. A guy on my last trip last year, it was his second attempt to get to the continent because someone on his first attempt died on his ship. He must have got hit. The ship must have got hit by a rogue wave, and he got slammed against the wall or something, had a head injury, and the trip was over. So those kinds of things happen, and but we fly down, and it's absolutely wonderful.
So before I let you go, why don't you let everybody know the different ways that they can find your different ventures, from your travel company to where they can find your photography to your YouTube channel. Just very quickly let everybody know how they can experience more of your travel work.
Yeah. So if you go to continentaldrifter.co, that is the hub of everything. You'll find links to my YouTube channel, all the podcasts I've been on, the blog posts I've created. There's a gallery there of much of my photography, although I need to update it with some new stuff, fill in some gaps. All the trips are there, of course, with lots of information, pricing, dates, itineraries, everything. So that hub is continentaldrifter.co. Something I would like to offer your listeners is $200 off of any trip this year, 2025. Just let me know that you're a listener of the show, and I will give you $200 off any trip in 2025. You can also find the course that I created called Tour Organizer Training, where I teach people how to do what I do through an online course. And finally, my books are there. So I've got 3 books. I just actually bundled them into, this is a 3-in-1 book. So all 3 books are in this one book. So you get them all in a single book, or you could buy them separately as well. But these are all available on Amazon. And this book is called The Mindful and Intentional Traveler, which is the name of the series. So I've got a gratitudes edition, and I've also have one that's how to be a mindful traveler using your 5+ senses. And that has to do with that concept of just stopping, looking, listening, feeling, tasting more intentionally when you travel. So I think you'll get a lot more out of your trips when you do that. So continentaldrifter.co.
Ralph Velasco, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I was really looking forward to having you on the show, and it was definitely worth it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Great conversation. Thank you.
The link for the LA Regional Food Bank is in the description for this video. Please make sure you donate anything you can. It would be really appreciated. Something fun I thought I would do, since we are focusing on the Los Angeles area, the Southern California area, is I put together a list of my 10 favorite songs referencing either Los Angeles or California. This is just my personal list. If you want, and you want to put together your own list, drop it in the comments. I would really appreciate it. That would be kind of fun. Here are some honorable mentions. I have Tupac, To Live and Die in LA, Mama and the Papas, California Dreamin', Billy Joel, Los Angelinos, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication, and Under the Bridge. Here are my top 10 songs about Los Angeles or California. Number 10, St. Vincent, Los Angeles. Number 9, Billy Joel, Say Goodbye to Hollywood. Number 8, The Eagles, Hotel California. 7, Missing Persons, Walking in LA. Very, very underrated song from the 80s. Number 6, Tom Petty, Free Fallin'. 5, Warren G, Regulate. 4, Randy Newman, I Love LA, of course, played after every Dodgers win at Dodger Stadium. Number 3, I know it's a cover. I know a lot of people will like the Beach Boys version better, but I am going with David Lee Roth, California Girls. Number 2, Everclear, Santa Monica, Watch the World Die. I'm going to see Everclear in a little over a week here in Florida. They are one of the bands that really got me into alternative music in the 90s, and a band that I found really right after I moved back to Pennsylvania from Los Angeles. So, a big place in my heart for that band. And number one, of course, it can't be anything else than Tupac Shakur featuring Dr. Dre, California Love. The description has the link for the fundraiser. Every dollar you donate will buy 3 meals through the LA Regional Food Bank. Let's continue talking about some Disney right now. Hey everyone, I am joined by Maz, and we're going to do something special for our very special fundraising episode here on Saturday night. This is going to be pretty quick, but we are going to talk about Wicked and the chances we think that Wicked might be finding its way into one of the Universal theme parks. So, Maz, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How many times have you seen Wicked in theaters?
I saw it 3 times in the theaters. Um, and since it's come out for streaming, I've seen it 3 more times. So really, really going for it.
How many times did you see Wicked in musical form?
3 times. So I've really just putting threes across the board.
You are about to hit double digits on Wicked here. So I want to get into this here a little bit, and I want to start talking about Wicked as a Universal property. When you were at Universal for the Orlando Informer meetup back in December, they had a little room, a little store that had some trinkets in it. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so they had I don't know if they're calling it an experience, but it was essentially a plussed up shop. And it was really cool. They had giant like billboards on either side, one of Glinda, one of Elphaba. And you walk in and they had a bunch of prop replicas from the show. So a bunch of different costumes and things like that, that you could walk through, which was very fun. And then they had some cool photo ops, like, with the broom or in the wizard's office, things like that. And then, of course, you exit through the gift shop. And they had a bunch of really cool merchandise that I amazingly restrained myself and did not buy anything, but it was very tempting because it was very good. And it was really cool. If you're a fan of the movie, and you like those little details and you'd be interested in seeing like costumes up close, I definitely recommend going to check it out.
So, a lot of times when we consider an intellectual property and whether it would be able to sustain its own theme park land, the first thing is how long lasting will this IP be? How relevant will it be in X amount of years? And from what I understand, Wicked is going to be a two-part movie where
Hmm.
if you've seen Wicked, that's only half the story. You're going to have to go in November of this year and see the second half of the story. So they've already stretched out what they have to the point that this is going to remain relevant for at least another year.
Well, and here's the thing. Wicked, the stage show, opened in 2003. So it's already, you know, old as an IP. Um, and the fact that they made this movie, 20 years later, and it's still had this huge reception of people, flocking to go see it. And they've got another part coming. I feel like it has shown that this is still like a very relevant IP movie franchise, however you want to phrase it. So I think it's got legs at this point.
And it would be so funny the way that Universal likes to sort of take jabs at Disney. We just saw the other day when Dino Land USA closed at Animal Kingdom, and they posted, if you want to land with dinosaurs, come on over. We got Jurassic Park over here at Islands of Adventure. They love to take their jabs at Disney, and with the weird quirks of intellectual property law, Disney has been trying for decades to tap into the Wizard of Oz, including making some prequels, or I don't even know what those movies were. I think wasn't like James Franco in it or
Oh
something.
my God, yeah, I forgot about those. Those were something.
And they have been trying so hard to get this. They had it on the Great Movie Ride. And now it looks like Universal is the one that's going to end up being able to create this Wicked Land. And when you talk about relevance, yes, the stage show has been around since 2003. There's books. There's now going to be two movies. But The Wizard of Oz has been around for almost 100 years. The movie itself, the iconic movie,
Right?
and then the book even longer than that. So I do think this would be an IP that you could safely say, let's build a land around it and it will be able to last for decades.
Build me a yellow brick road. Oh, that would be so cool. I mean, so cool.
All right, so why don't you brainstorm just very quickly, what would you like to see in a Wicked Land?
I want Shiz. I want to be able to walk through Shiz. There should be some kind of boat ride. Movie establishes it's on the water, so I think there's an easy tie-in to like, bring you through the university or whatever. Maybe Madame Morrible's giving you a tour. I don't know. There should be. I mean, you gotta get Jeff Goldblum in there somewhere, right? Like the wizard has to do something. I don't know if you somehow get a wizard's castle ride in there. I don't know, but I feel like you just have to put him in a pre-show somewhere. Like I need that to happen. I desperately want a defying gravity ride. I don't know the mechanics. I would be happy if they like took Flight of Passage, and made it seem like you're riding on a broom and they just like played Defying Gravity in my ears while I'm like flying over land. That's gonna make me happy. That's all I need. Just put the music in my ears and just, CGI it.
It's Flight of Passage, it's part Rip Ride Rocket. It's
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm sure they'll come up with something better than that. Um, but yeah, I want this interactive world. I want to be able to walk down the yellow brick road to go see the wizard. I want I would love if there's a way in Dancing Through Life they're in a library and they've got like rotating parts. I would love if there's somehow some way to incorporate that into something. I don't know. There's a train. Give us a train ride. I have so many ideas. They're not great, but Universal, listen. I will come give you my ideas for a Wicked Land, and you can use them and just let me go for free.
and we're hearing rumors Simpsons might be going soon. There's that Lost Continent area that doesn't have any attractions right now. There's a lot of space. They're building a whole new theme park.
There's a whole new park.
I think we might be getting Wicked at some point in the next few years.
I will say, truly, it has happened a couple times with like Disney where you watch something and you're like, oh, they could put this in the movie this way so they could put it in the theme park. And I felt that while watching Wicked. There were a few scenes where I was like, oh, the way they built this, it feels like it's meant to be a theme park. And at the beginning, there's one section where Cynthia or Elphaba is singing The Wizard and I, and she's like exploring through Shiz, and she's like, going down these different cool paths and different rooms and stuff. And I think that would be a cool, like almost the Moana walkthrough. If they could do something like that with that kind of set, I think would be a really cool thing. I do fear that them creating a Wicked Land would subject a lot of regular day guests to just listening to people sing. And like, I might be part of the problem. Like, if you put me in those shoes, there's a small chance that there will be a part of me under my breath, going like, when I meet the wizard, because I just can't help it.
I tell you what, some great ideas. Universal, make it happen. Maz, it is always such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm back with Jeff Gordon, who organized this fundraiser. And Jeff, we talk about this as, a problem that people are seeing on television. But for you, you grew up in Santa Monica, Palisades, which has been just completely devastated by these fires, just north of you. What are you thinking? First of all, I'm assuming you are safe and you know what your exit strategy would be if needed. But what's going through your mind when you're seeing these places that you've known your entire life and you're seeing all of this destruction?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. It is really quite hard to put into words because you grew up in these areas. You grew up in the Palisades. Like if you're in Santa Monica, it's just a short drive up the Pacific Coast Highway through a little bit of Malibu to the Palisades, and you're right there. And I used to take classes out on the Palisades. I would sometimes work at Palisades Charter High School and seeing the shambles that that's in on what's left of Palisades Charter High School, it really hits home. And you would never think in your lifetime that something like, especially in 2025, with as advanced as we are in a lot of things, it's like I can't believe like a whole town would just burn down, or 75% of a town would burn down. And the same thing in Altadena. And it's just really hard because, I I have at least 20 people I can just think in my head right now that lost their homes in the Palisades fire, and I know about four for the Altadena fire, and then just I want to say countless other people that were displaced. Luckily, thank you for asking. We were safe. We did move a little bit south to avoid the air quality issue just as a precaution, but we were never under evacuation order in my area of Santa Monica. But it's just so tragic and it's so hard. But as you got to always look for the helpers in this situation. And there are a lot of great helpers. Like you see people getting brooms and shovels and walking around Altadena and starting to clean up some of the things that they can clean up. You see people just willing to give out of their pockets, like in this situation with the LA Regional Food Bank, to support the fire victims in immediate and long-term support.
And I know when some of these houses were first being shown, and they were showing these multi-million dollar houses in Malibu, and there was talk about, controversial celebrities like James Woods, and people were sort of looking at it like, well, those people are wealthy. And I think, yes, James Woods is wealthy. Like he made a lot of money. And a lot of those people on the beaches in Malibu, they had a lot of money. And I'm not saying that the people who have a lot of money deserve to lose their homes. I'm not saying that at all. But I think what a lot of people are missing is, there are a lot of middle class, working class families that are out of homes. And when they do rebuild, my concern, my biggest worry is that when they rebuild, it's going to drive the price of everything up even more. So you may see celebrities posting on the internet and saying, oh, my house is fine, or my house was destroyed. And you're thinking, well, they're celebrities. That's, they'll be fine no matter what. And they will be fine no matter what. But the people who won't be fine, Los Angeles is a huge city, and it is not just rich people. There is a beautiful collection of middle class, working class people, and they are struggling, and their entire towns have been destroyed. So I want you to talk about that Los Angeles that maybe people in the rest of the country don't know. The middle class Los Angeles, the working class Los Angeles, the people who just go to regular jobs each and every day.
Yeah, I mean, uh, you hit it right on the head there, Rick, is that Palisades is not all rich. There's people that have been living there for, having family homes there for a long time, but they're working class individuals. And then you have an entire um, cadre of employees that are in Palisades, people from housekeepers to nannies to gardening services to like even the Starbucks workers that in Palisades Village and the supermarkets, every one of those working class workers is now without a job. And those jobs may not be there. They may not choose to rebuild their homes there or rehire those individuals. So now what are they going to do? Where are they going to find employment? How are they going to put food on the table? And Altadena, um, also a beautiful town. It was one of the first neighborhoods where African Americans were allowed to buy homes the in in the Los Angeles area and even in the state of California. So you have a community with historically marginalized individuals now flattened, and you have insurance that may not even pay for it all. Like if your home was valued at $1 million, even though I think that's really inflated in Los Angeles, everything seems to be valued at $1 million a home, insurance may only pay for half of that or a third of that. So then it becomes you can't even afford to rebuild on the land that you have. And what will happen is other people might move in and it changes the landscape of the Palisades and Altadena area. So, it's really important to just try to provide support for the working class individuals. Not everybody in LA is a celebrity or an influencer. I'm a community college counselor. I'm not, like no, by no means and I work in administration at a community college. By no means do I have a Hollywood show or a movie or anything like that. But it's not the majority of us. The majority of us, we're middle class, socioeconomic status. We're all trying to bring ourselves up and put food on the table. So when this happens, and there was not a lot you could do to prepare, you just had to get out. People will just have to run for their lives or abandon their cars in Palisades and Altadena, and just get out to save their lives. And unfortunately, some people did not. um we lost, I think it's about 27 people that have lost their lives. So they people didn't have time, so this is just right now again with the LA Regional Food Bank. It's just there to support them in immediate, get food on the table because you're displaced, and long term food security.
And I think one of the great things about raising money for a food bank, as opposed to a number of other different charities, is, let's say, and this is going to be a lot of people who donate to our, Diz Twitter collection of theme park fans. Maybe you have $10. Well, $10 for a food bank is going to go a lot further than it is with a lot of other charities, because you can get a lot of food. You can feed multiple people on $5, $10.
Right. And the food banks tell us that about $1 donated equals 3 meals, right? So if you just do the math right there, $10 is 30 meals. So when I'm out there promoting on social media and I say, hey, we're $400 away from hitting $7,000, that means we're 1,200 meals away, right? So like we're going to provide another 1,200 meals, for these individuals and families who need it the most, like in this time of crisis.
Absolutely. I want to ask you something that's on topic, but I'm moving away from the fundraiser just a little bit. I just want to get your opinion as somebody who is from Los Angeles, lives in the area. There's some talks about whether they should have some of the award shows coming back. And I know that there are two schools of thought. Some people are saying, let's show them that we're strong, that we're resilient. Let's promote some of the different charity organizations in the area. And the other school of thought, obviously, being like with the NFL, with the Rams playing in Arizona last weekend in the playoffs, we're saying we just don't want to eat up those resources and take police, firefighters, EMTs away from the big major problems. Where do you stand on things like the Oscars and whether they should still try to have them here?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I certainly respect both sides of things. I know with like the Grammys and Oscars, there's still a little bit of time before I think March is traditionally the Oscars or end of February. But the one thing I will say is for me, it's really about putting people to work, right? Because when you're producing the Oscars and when you're producing the Grammys, it's not the celebrities that are doing the work, right? It's production assistants, it's craft services, it's maintenance workers, it's all these different people who are dependent on the job. And you got to remember, Hollywood, the industry is already shaky from recovering from COVID-19 and the strike. There was a strike, and luckily the workers got um, gained a lot of wonderful benefits. But when it was at a standstill for nearly a year, Los Angeles lost a lot of production. So like having these award shows are really putting people to work. Because if you don't do them and they're not out of work and then they're out of work, then it doesn't help. I don't think it really helps. I think it's a good thing, and I think maybe they do. And I know this word pivot is used a lot, but you know I know there's a lot of comedians, and I know Conan's going to be hosting the Oscars, but like maybe, you still do a little bit of funny bits, but you also pivot to highlight, some fundraising efforts, as well, because I think that's the most important thing is like it's important to show that LA is strong and also keep people employed.
It would be amazing if by that point, by the time the Oscars are here, if things are under control enough that some of the firefighters could get to dress up and
Yeah.
be a part of the ceremony, get to go to the show, get to go to the after parties. I think that would be something that is, um, really great. And I don't talk about this a lot, but I actually went to high school in the Los Angeles area. I went to Chatsworth High School.
Hmm.
That's where I started. I finished back in Pennsylvania. But when we talk about the Los Angeles area and some of the misconceptions that people have about it, not just when talking about this fire, but what are some of your favorite things about having grown up in Los Angeles? And what do you want the rest of the country to know about your area that you think maybe they have misconceptions?
I think the biggest thing again is we're not all celebrities, so there is a good majority of us who are not famous, and we do have a sense of a great community here in Los Angeles. There's a lot of heart and resiliency within the greater Los Angeles area, and each community, whether it's Santa Monica or Palisades or Altadena or Culver City, like each part of Los Angeles has their own identity, like, our LA County area that has its own identity. There's, you go to downtown LA, there's Thai Town, there's the Fashion District. I mean, everybody has their own identity, and that's kind of what makes Los Angeles great is that we have our own identity, but we can all come together as a community. So I think it's just we're not it's not all fluff in LA. We're real people. We go on our daily lives, and if we see a celebrity walk by, we're probably not the ones asking for the autograph. We see them and just kind of go on with our day. Yeah.
Yeah, when I actually did live there, my uncle was a Dodgers season ticket holder, and I think one of the things that, and I'm wearing a Dodger hat today for this.
Nice.
I think one of the things that really shows you Los Angeles is going to a Dodger game because you get everybody. You see
Yes.
the rich and they have the really good seats right up close, and you have the middle class people who are out in the bleachers, maybe a more ethnically diverse group out in the bleachers, out in the outfield, and it's everybody coming together. There are the neighborhoods, there are the different areas throughout Los Angeles, but everybody does come together and have a collective identity
Right,
as
right.
being a Los Angelino.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's such a beautiful thing, and I absolutely love that vibe.
I think that's what's great about baseball on the Dodgers and Chavez Ravine is that it's still accessible and somewhat affordable to everybody to come out. So you see, all walks of life who can be Dodger fans. And when the World Series was happening, and people from everywhere just came together in joy that they won in the parade, and it was just like the entire city was in great joy. But now that we're in a time of crisis, it's like we're also like having that grit and resiliency to come out of this stronger than we were before. It's going to take time, and then relying on our friends around, the United States and the world to help us, I think is critically important too.
And I think when baseball came back from the pandemic, actually, the Dodgers won it that year too. But
Yeah,
when baseball came back from the pandemic, and I know that I've seen documentaries, and I think a lot of us remember, if we're old enough, when baseball came back after 9/11. And I do think that coming up in 2025, after winning the World Series in 2024, I do think the Dodgers are going to play a huge part in bringing back that resiliency, bringing back those carefree summer nights after so much stress that has gone through this. And I think that's going to be a big thing that's going to bring the community together even more in the upcoming year, because you've been through a lot, and you go through earthquakes, and the earthquake happens, and then it's the aftermath. And there are hurricanes, and the hurricane blows through in one day, and then there's the aftermath. Well, this is still happening, and the aftermath has already started, and we're not even done with all of the aftermath yet. Like, we haven't even started all of the aftermath. So this is going to be a long term issue, and that's why I think donating to the LA Regional Food Bank, having them be prepared to help everyone, because this is still ongoing, and once it's not ongoing, it's going to be a long recovery. Jeff Gordon, thank you so much for being with us all evening long. You really, really helped us out. Just let everybody know very quickly. Like I said, the link is in the description, but if you want to let them know how they can donate, that would be a big help too.
right. Yeah. So you could just if you don't mind me sharing my socials, I can just say to go from there. But first of all, thank you everybody for the consideration and sharing and donating whatever you can. It truly is appreciated. It really does. Like I said, every dollar does make a difference here. I am on X, formerly Twitter, at Jeff Gordon LA, spelled just like the NASCAR driver, but I don't get out of speeding tickets when I speed. I'm also on Blue Sky at Jeff Gordon LA. Instagram a little different. It's Gordon Grubs on Instagram, but I've been posting between the three of those the most often, and it's just really nice to see uh, Diz Twitter, Diz community, and the larger community coming together. Sports reporters, news reporters, just random strangers, all resharing this and donating, which is just great. And thank you so much.
Jeff, thank you for doing this. I had a lot of fun talking to you, and please do us a favor, stay safe, make sure that your friends and family are safe. And I can't wait to talk to you in a much happier situation.
Yeah, anytime I'm happy to talk Disney with you.
We certainly tried something different tonight. I don't know if it's going to end up working. I hope some of you were able to donate. I hope we were able to raise a lot of money for the LA Regional Food Bank. The link is still in the description. The fundraiser goes through Monday. However, if you don't see this until after Monday, January 20th, you can still donate to the LA Regional Food Bank. Just make sure you are on their actual page and drop a donation. We've said it a number of times. Every dollar buys 3 meals. That is incredible. We have seen all of the devastation. We've seen the fires. We've heard from our favorite celebrities who maybe have had to evacuate, who maybe didn't have to evacuate, some who lost everything, some who were lucky and didn't lose everything. I don't know if you're like me, but I have a lot of friends in the Los Angeles area. It's been really difficult worrying about all of them, and I just thought if we could do something to try to help. I often quote this line. It's a line that shows up in a lot of Aaron Sorkin material, but apparently it goes back to an old monk. I don't know if what I do pleases you, Lord, but I think the fact that I want to please you pleases you. So sometimes if I don't know what to do, I just do something. And I hope that that makes a difference. So maybe we made a difference talking about Disney and having some fun on a Saturday night. Maybe we didn't, but I certainly hope that putting the positive energy into the world is something, especially right now, that will really help. If you wonder why I have this huge face of hair and I have not shaved in a while, it is my playoff beard. Notre Dame plays in the national championship game on Monday night, and I have not shaved since the start of the playoffs, and I will not shave until at least Monday night after the game. It worked for the Dodgers. They won the 2024 World Series with me growing a playoff beard. Hopefully it works for Notre Dame as well. Thank you so much. Like I said, link in the description. Like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.